All right, welcome to WordPress Advanced. Just a quick overview, and this really is quick. Tonight we're talking local WordPress development. In other words, the ability to develop WordPress sites, work on themes, work on plugins, basically work on your entire WordPress setup on your local machine such that you can do pretty much what you want to do. For the most part, Jerry will talk about sometimes when that's not entirely accurate, but mostly offline. Just a really, really cool thing. Now, there are a ton of solutions out there to do local WordPress development or local development in general. Jerry is going to show you his preferred solution, and it's a solution I think that you're really, really going to like because this topic can be extremely complex from a technical setup or a technical standpoint, and Jerry's solution, the solution that he uses, is going to make that a whole lot easier for those that aren't extremely technical by nature. We're also going to get into a lot more use of the Backup Buddy plugin. We're going to talk a little bit more about backups. We're going to talk more about some of the settings available to Backup Buddy users, and then we're also going to use Backup Buddy to do full backups, to actually restore a site. We're basically going to show you a site and break it as if it was hacked, and then show you how to basically get back to good as efficiently and as properly as possible. We're also going to show you how to use Backup Buddy to migrate a site from one server to another, and so I think that you're going to enjoy all that. It is possible to migrate and or restore without the use of Backup Buddy. However, I will tell you that it's much more complex and it is a much more laborious process, and in our personal and professional opinions, it just doesn't make sense. Our time is valuable, and the time and frustration lost due to basically using some other piece of technology to do this and or doing it manually just doesn't make sense. It's a whole lot cheaper just to go out and buy the Backup Buddy plugin. And Jerry's got some more cool little things in his bag of tricks if time permits, and hopefully it will, but we won't cover those actually up front because, well, we don't know exactly how things are going to go. So with that, let's get to it.
All right, so we're all set. What I'm here to show is how to do development locally on your system as opposed to on a remote server, and this will work typically being connected or disconnected to the internet. So if you're somewhere where you can't, you don't have web access, you can still do your work. I can't demonstrate that portion because if I disconnect, then you guys don't get to see me. But I'll go over some of the parts that will and won't work. But we're going to concentrate on a product called Wordpress. And Wordpress, actually, I'm sorry, the product is called Desktop Server by Wordpress. Wordpress is Steven. And he concentrated on this product, and he has a product for a WordPress bulletin board. We're going to concentrate just on the desktop server product. It's at wordpress.com. There's two versions of desktop server. There is desktop server, I believe it's called the Lite. Let's see, here we go. Desktop server limited and desktop server premium. I personally use desktop server premium, but I'm going to actually demonstrate desktop server limited tonight. The main differences have to do with using it to import and export websites and to deploy sites, as well as if you want to use it with Dreamweaver, which I don't use. It also has professional level support at his site. The product is fairly easy to install. You unzip it and you drag it to your, on a Windows machine, you drag it to your C root directory and click on the desktop server icon. I have a shortcut here, but I'm going to actually, let's see, pretend it's not running here. So what, you can create shortcuts, and I'll give you a hint about creating shortcuts in just a second, but let me go to, you drag this directory right to your C directory, and it's installed. You go inside, and there's a button that says Desktop Server. It uses an open source free project called XAMPP Lite, or some people call it XAMP Lite. But that product is great. However, it's not targeted towards WordPress, and it requires, like on a scale of 1 to 10 of nerdness, it requires about an 8 to get it configured and all up and running. With desktop server, you drag it, you drop it, you click on this button. And what you're not going, well, actually, what you should see here is by default, it comes up and asks you every time you want to run it because of what it is. You know where it's coming from, so you can uncheck it here. And it will come up, and this is the first thing that gets most people so frustrated that they stop using it. It's because they don't understand what this is doing. It has to run as an administrator because you're running a server, and it has to have all sorts of access for a server to run. And so it's asking you, do you want to restart with privileges or do not give it privileges? And that's administration privileges. There's another button down here that automatically checks for a new version every time before restarting. So the problem is that every single time it starts, it'll ask you on the screen. And you can hit next, and it will come up and give, if you're on Windows Vista or Windows 7, it comes up with a box, the UAC, user access control, and it's like a yellow bar at the top, and you hit yes or no. I can't show you the yellow bar box because GoToMeeting won't show that to you. My screen blanks out, and that box comes up. But if you've ever seen it, it's the same one, and you can say yes. But the trick is, if you right-click on this, there is a button that says Run as Administrator. And you can actually just have it automatically run as administrator. But the bigger trick is to drag it to your pin box or wherever you want it in the programs or down in your task thing. And you go into Properties, you click Advanced, and you choose as Run as Administrator. So every time you click it, it'll run as administrator. So I spent more time than it really takes, but that'll save you tons of time in the long run. So now what happens is you just run it. So you click on it. It's now showing the yellow barred box that you can't see. It says, do you want to allow the following program from an unknown publisher to make changes to this computer? Say yes. Did everyone hear that? Did you hear that, Kevin? Just want to make sure I didn't blank out while I was in administrator mode.
Nope, everything came through perfectly. I just had muted myself.
Oh, that's okay. So now you're here at the main screen. So if you use that, this will be the screen that you see every time. And it's basically telling you by default that the web and database services are not running. You need to be running Apache web server, which is what we typically show on like Linux boxes. And when you go into your cPanel system, it's running Apache web server. And then a MySQL database server to create and modify WordPress websites. And it asks you if you want to run them now. This also lets you know if it's already running or not. If it's not, if it is running, and it'll actually ask you if you want to stop the services. So we just say yes. If you had Dreamweaver, it would ask you about that. And then there's debug services. If you had a debugger, there are some PHP debuggers that will work with it. We won't get into that now, but the Wordpress site has how to install those and work with those. It also says, be sure to check your operating system security control panel settings. This is running a live server on your desktop. It is not all locked down for heavy-duty security while it's on your desktop because it's designed to allow you to use it on your computer to do development. When you migrate the sites out, it's going to, you would put it on your secure server. But for locally, it's not as secure as it could possibly be. For example, the MySQL server doesn't have usernames and passwords on it. So if you've been playing with your firewall, be careful when you're using this like at Starbucks. By default, it's all locked, so other people can't use it. So that's the word of warning. Hit next, and it'll basically say it's going to start the web and database services. This is now starting up the Apache server and the MySQL database locally. If you're using Windows Ultimate, Windows 7 Ultimate, or if you're using some Macintosh OS X systems, you might have another web server running, and it'll tell you about that, and there's information about how to shut that off. So this is it. It's done. It's now running a web server on my site. That's all there is to configuring it. If you were to go with like XAMP Lite, you would be spending hours figuring out all the INI files and everything else. It's designed for professional WordPress development. That's its goal. This is the limited version. The limited version will only allow you to have 3 active sites at any one time. The premium version allows you to have an unlimited amount of sites running on your server. We can either stop it if you were going to shut down or need to do some changes. And if we had sites, we could copy them. But we're going to create a new development website. So we hit next. And the idea here is you're going to run them locally and see them locally. So it creates a .dev extension. Instead of .com or .info or .net, it's .dev. So whatever domain you make here is exclusively to your machine. So if you were going to duplicate a live server, a client's machine, you can still put their domain here and still have it create clientsdomain.dev, and then when you move it to their domain, it would using like backup buddy or such, it would change it to .com. But locally, it's running locally, so you can actually see both the sites. And I'll demonstrate a little more in just a moment. Blueprint is part of Desktop Server, and by default, the version that's out today auto loads an older version of WordPress, but you can add any versions that you want. There will be updates, and so it'll be automatic, but it's really easy to add, and I'll show you how to do blueprints. Right before this started, I actually put in some other ones here, and you might or might not be able to read all these, but it came with 3.3.1. 3.3.2 is the most prevalent one out there. Not that everybody's upgraded, but we just had 3.4 that came out a couple days ago before this particular one. I can have anything I want in here. I can also have non-WordPress sites, just a blank PHP site, or I can have other PHP type applications that are on these blueprints. I can even run the absolute latest build that I just came out a couple hours ago, the bleeding edge test build of WordPress, all inside my environment, so I don't have to worry about the server and such. For this, we're going to first one, we're going to just run 3.4. It'll create a folder called websites, and all the files will be in that particular one. You can browse around and change it, but usually you'll just leave it where it's at. And you hit create. It goes out and creates the folder. It creates the settings in what they call a host file that tells your computer that your computer is actually who's hosting clientsdomain.dev, as opposed to going out to a DNS server to find where on the internet the file is. It does all that configuration. It goes and creates the database and pre-configures WordPress files, including getting the salts and other things that we could do with wp-config. It then restarts the web and database services so that the database and everything is there, and then now it says it's done. So when we click next, it'll say you're done, and it'll give us this link right here. And you can click on it, or you can type it in your browser, and it will go, and now we're at the main WordPress install. So I'll just do this like we've done before, client's domain. I still recommend putting in a little bit harder stuff here, even though it's locally, but for this, we're just going to put some basic things in here. They're not too basic. And put in your email addresses and stuff like that. So this is the basic setup. Now, even though it's offline per se, it's going to try to go send stuff to, if it sends it to email, it'll use this email address. I mean, it still knows that the internet's there, just, if you're online type thing. So I would put in a real one or a definite one that's fake that it's not going to go to. Don't put, Bill Gates at Microsoft.com, because it'll send it if something does. You hit install, and what you're going to notice different from this install than a normal WordPress install is it didn't ask us anything about the database, because it had already pre-configured that on a random database when it started, which is fine for when we're doing development locally. Click login. We're at the admin screen, and we can hopefully remember our password, and there we are. This is a WordPress 3.4 install. It's all ready to go. Let's see, get rid of that. Forgot to turn that off, but there it is. Just like if you were to, install it on your own server. On this, we have a directory called websites. There's clientsdomain.dev, and there's all the files sitting right there. So when you want to go through and do your, if you want to do like cleanup and things like that, like we normally do, instead of having to do FTP, you're actually can work on the files right here. It does not do by default, it doesn't do a really heavy security version of WordPress, but you can build your own blueprints. So that's all there is to setting up a WordPress install that runs locally. And now you can go in and add plugins, and you can add different themes and such. So it all works just like a normal version of WordPress. For the most part, you can even go in and upload. Let's see, I get some downloads here. You can even go in and upload different plugins, just through here. You could have, dragged them in if you wanted to, and they're ready to go. Now, at this point, I could disconnect from the internet. Everything's locally. I've got it all loaded up. I've already downloaded all my plugins that I want to use and my themes, and everything's sitting on my hard drive. There's no reason for me to need the internet. The problem will be with certain plugins that go out and see the real world if you're disconnected. Ones like with Backup Buddy, you have to license it when you first get it to get it to work. At that point, you have to be connected to the internet. After that, you don't need to be connected to the internet anymore. If you have certain like Google Analytics on your dev site and you're offline, it's not going to connect to Google. So there's some minor things like that that you have to take into consideration. That said, there's also, if you have something that comes and checks your site, like right now I can't have Google look at this site because it doesn't sit on the internet. So for example, if, let's see, I can't show that. I was going to show Backup Buddy, but it's not installed. Backup Buddy or like security doesn't know where clientsdomain.dev is. It can't attach to my computer. So anything that you had running like Backup Buddy or some of the security analyzers that go out and then come back and look at your site, they won't work because your site is not sitting on the internet. Because if you're typing clientsdomain.dev, you won't find this site. So this is all ready to go. You have access to all the same things that we've shown before, like if you wanted to go in and edit your plugin. You got the same editor. It's all still sitting here, the same security, and you can go in and change it. You have pages, media, everything. It's all sitting locally. So the nice thing about this is now you have a development system that's completely detached from your client. So if you have like a client, you can import their whole site locally into your computer and work on it there, make tweaks, make designs. Or if you're building a new site, you can build it here. And so you can do all the designs. Or if you just want to play with learning child themes or plugins or how code works, you do it right here. Because the nice thing about this is the worst thing that typically will happen is that you will end up having to remove the site or restart it. And to remove a site right now, it's going to be a little easier on a newer version, but it's not that hard right here. You click remove, hit the button. It's going to warn you everything's going to be gone, and it now removes the databases, the host changes, removes all the privileges for that, and then it restarts the database. It's gone. Now the problem is, it's gone. So you're going to have, make sure back up if you really want to keep it. That's it for the basic parts of desktop server. It's also good if you are like a plugin developer, a theme developer. You can go out and get, like I had WordPress release candidate before it came out, or if you have a standard package that you like to use, you can just select that, have that package built and use that to create through the blueprints. And the blueprints are created by going into the Zamplite directory, and there's a blueprints directory. All this is a set of files that will be copied into what is basically the public.html. So these files will be copied in whatever's in here. This particular one is a standard 3.4 install. And this one that I have 3.4 and TNP is inside of content, I added some extra themes, and in plugins, I added a couple plugins already. So by the time that this is done, and I click on it, we'll go through the same setup, because again, this is a new setting, a new site. And again, on the limited version, you're limited to 3 active ones. On the premium one, it's unlimited. And so we just set this up, go through, log in, and what you're going to see different here is that, well, here you're not going to see it, but in plugins, and when you click install plugins, I got rid of the 2 that I don't use, Akismet and Hello Dolly. I put 2 that I normally use. I put in some themes that I would normally use or work with, and so I have like a base one to go with. This is my blueprint to start with. So you could basically use use anything that you want. You do still have access to the plugin repository as long as you're connected. So you can connect to repository and download plugins. You can also download the zip files and just keep them. But yeah, this works exactly like a standard WordPress install. Let's see. The other aspect, even though it says WordPress everywhere, like I mentioned before, you can have, I'm sorry, the one thing I should show is you can also copy sites. So like if you wanted to show 2 different versions to a client or whatever, you can just copy them and use that to start with to do tweaks. You can have things that are different that have nothing to do with WordPress directly, and you can use this as your basis to work with. So you basically have a PHP environment with a MySQL database, which is pretty standard. So now you can use training, such as you can download like videos that are on training and watch them while you're working wherever, as long as you have your computer, you're set. You don't need the internet for this. And if you want to work on other projects, you can set up a site that has nothing to do with WordPress directly, and it's already all ready to go. So it's that's still within desktop server. So it's not limited to just WordPress. And you can create anything that you have a blueprint for. By default, it comes with 1 version of WordPress with a blueprint and 1 blank, which is the blank one is just a hello page kind of thing. But you can make anything that you want. So desktop server is a great thing for learning about PHP and MySQL, for doing things locally and not having to worry about hurting a server or hurting a site. It's great for doing development or testing things. Like we just had 3.4 come out. We just had a new version of Backup Buddy come out. There might be a new plugin or a new version of a theme, and you don't want to test it on your live site. You can import the live site down to your computer, install it, and then do the modifications there and do testing. That's how I do testing before I deploy new versions of themes for live client sites. So that's basically how that works, and here's that beautiful welcome page that they made. So this is all how desktop server works. If you're not using it and you're done, you hit stop and it stops. If you want to uninstall it, it's as easy as deleting the XAMPP Lite directory. There's a couple files that are left behind that aren't used. They're just a couple configuration files that are hiding. A new version coming out actually will have an uninstall mode. So you can actually completely get it off your computer when you don't want it. I leave it on my computer all the time. I just reinstalled the limited version so you could actually see exactly what works for free. Everything that you saw here was free. And so I think it's a great way to be doing development and such. You then can use things like Backup Buddy it moves and migrates and backs up sites the same way as a live WordPress site. So Kevin's going to show you some of that stuff, so I'm not getting into doing that within here, but it would work exactly the same way. Any questions?
There have been a number of questions come in. I've done my best to kind of handle the ones that have come in. But I will, let me answer one more, and then I'll hit up a couple of things. So I was in the middle of answering one, so.
Of course, that's always the case. So I appreciate the feedback that I see here, and I hope you guys grasp how this works and try it. It's free. I tried the free version, and after about 15 minutes, I bought the premium version. I was just like, I need the premium version.
Okay, so here's one
well.
question that works in conjunction with what you just said, and we can edit this out if we want, but someone has been begging for your affiliate link for the premium version if you have one. Do you have such an animal?
There is no premium. There is no affiliate link.
Okay, there you go. So I think it was Dale who asked. Just if you want to, just go get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's, yeah, I appreciate you doing that. I don't have an affiliate link, but even with that, I fully feel that it's well worth the price. So you can get the basic version, and there's an upgrade path to the premium version, so you don't lose anything, and or you can just go and get the premium version. As of right now, the premium version is you buy 1 year worth of access to the site, to the Wordpress site, and you get support, premium support, and versions and everything for 1 year. But you're allowed to use the product forever. The product doesn't die after a year. And I don't know what the renewal rate is. You can go to his site and see what pricing and stuff is at this point.
Okay. Question from George. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, no problem.
So question from George is the process he just wants to make sure that he understands the process. You develop locally, then use Backup Buddy to the live site. Is that correct?
Yes. So what happens is you're developing locally, and this happens to be your server. It works the same way as a Backup Buddy. If you were developing on a server, that was in Michigan, on internet, and then using Backup Buddy. Backup Buddy really doesn't know the difference between this box and a box that's on the internet. There is the only feature that I found so far that didn't work in Backup Buddy when you are connected is that there is a malware scanner in Backup Buddy, and it tries to go out to security and have it test your machine, but security can't find your machine because it doesn't know where whatever.dev is. But other than that, it actually works. The new Backup Buddy even works better for this.
Next question, although he answered it himself, I think it would be good for everyone else. I think at the beginning of this, you did make mention that you would show how to add different WordPress versions into Desktop Server, but I don't know that you did that. If you did, I missed it while answering questions.
Well, I'll just go back over it. Is inside of there's a thing called Blueprints. I happen to have a shortcut because I do this development all the time. So that's why if you saw that, why that shows up. Normally it doesn't. You can have the libraries here. But you would go to your local C drive, into Zamplite, and into Blueprints. Blueprints is where you build the content that you would normally like FTP up to the server. You would build them in these particular ones. And then Desktop Server, when it comes to this page here, it uses that directory name here for whatever you're doing. So what I did is it came with 3.3.1. I unzipped 3.3.2 because that's a very popular one. I unzipped the new 3.4, and then I copied it, and I put inside of it, I put like themes that we use and the plugins. And I customized it a little bit before I had FTP, basically like making a master files of different kinds. So I could have any versions of WordPress, and like this I just grabbed right before the webinar started the latest nightly build of WordPress. So if I was a developer doing themes or bleeding edge stuff, you could actually run the absolute latest build. Again, it's a good way to test new builds against something. I typically recommend upgrading as quickly as you can, and if you're worried about stuff, this is a great way to test. Then you can also, this build is just the files from a demo site. I just unzipped them, put them here, and I was done, and that's my blueprint there. Here's that this page right here, the welcome to your website, is just a file that they put in here, and you can go in and edit it, and that's up your blueprint. And so if you have particular needs, or if you have certain people that use certain plugins or certain versions of WordPress, or anything pretty much that runs under PHP will run within desktop server. And again, it just shows up right here. You just choose which one you want. Type in your site name. It automatically does www and the non-www version, so either one works. Tells you where the files are going to be, and then saying right here's the limitation. You can only do 3 virtual servers at a time. You need to use the premium version. So if that's the case, you just remove one of the ones that you don't need, and once that's gone, you can then add another one. So that's all there is to making blueprints and working with them. Another question?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see. Mike says, did our previous training show how to upgrade to new versions of WordPress? Unfortunately, his internet went down after session 2. Sorry to hear that, Mike. Not sure what was covered. Well, we covered a whole lot more after session 2. So yeah, we did definitely cover how to upgrade WordPress. Again, we would just always say, what, Jerry?
I was going to actually, we were able to even do that and test that with this. So
okay, just back up. If you're doing it on a live site, just make sure to back up before you do it.
Right, back up first. And so, like, if you have a site, run backup just as much, and make sure that you have a new name in here. But backup first, then run the WordPress updater through WordPress. And then you usually are fine. And if there's a problem, you can then go to your backup again. You'll just basically restore your old backup. If you really want to test everything before you do it on a live site, you could bring it down to desktop server, do the upgrades, and either move that back up or just see that it all works. Updating WordPress itself is pretty straightforward. Most of it is automatic, so there isn't anything really involved in doing it. I believe though we did. I don't know if we did actually click on update. So I'll just show you that real quick. Any other questions?
Yeah. You want me to hit you with those now, or you want me to wait?
Yeah, you can hit me with them now, as I forgot my password. So let me get rid of this. Sorry guys, I use LastPass, and it really is an awesome program for me to save my passwords, but it does try to get in the way during webinars. So there's an update here, and you see the number of updates. It's telling you how many updates are here. We happen to have a WordPress that needs to be updated because we're running 3.3.2. Keysmet's been updated, and the 2011 themes have been updated. So that's what this little bar up here on the newer version says. You'll also see numbers next to things that says one, like one plugin. Themes itself does not tell you, which it's just one of those inconsistencies in WordPress. The only place it says updates has the numbers in here or here that includes themes. To update WordPress, backup, you can come here and you just click update, and it goes off and finds the latest update version, downloads it, unpacks it, installs it, and activates it with and now we're at WordPress 3.4. That's all there is to it. Of course, again, backup. But like you can see, this works just like a live site sitting on the internet. We're now back up, and it's a little different for plugins. If they're activated, they'll show up here, and you can see details and such. You can return to the plugins page, which will show here. They will also show here if they need to be updated. There'll be a yellow bar. And then we still have 2, which are the themes. Click Update Themes. It does a similar thing. Now with this, if you notice it says Enabling Maintenance Mode, it actually puts the whole site into maintenance mode and says, come back in a second. And then it comes back out with Disabling Maintenance Mode. And it does that during theme updates, during WordPress updates, or anything that uses this update. And we're now at the latest versions, and here's new features and stuff. So that's all there is to updating. I recommend doing it often after backing up.
All right.
Another question?
George has a more complex question, one that truthfully I don't fully understand. It says, if local environment is Windows 7 and the target is a Unix M/C, do the file permissions port correctly through Backup Buddy, or do permissions need to be set up on the target M/C separately? Does that make sense?
To my knowledge, you're not setting up. There's a way to get into doing more advanced file permissions inside of Wordpress. You go to the local host, and oh, this changed. Thanks, guys. And then I guess you have to hit English. So this is the local host, and then there's different things that you can do with through XAMPP. For the most part, the standard file permissions do migrate. If you're going to be doing more advanced stuff from desktop server to, this is a Windows machine, so to a Unix box, you want to read a little bit more about XAMPP and how it does the permissions. Backup Buddy itself takes the permissions and migrates them, so it does keep them. So, but it's I don't know exactly how to the one-to-one correlation of all the permissions, because I don't worry about that while I'm doing the development at this part. I take care of that when it's over on the live server if I need more stringent or changed permissions. Hopefully that answered your question. Oh, by the way, there's a full PHP myadmin in here, and you can go in and do all that stuff that we've shown at different points.
All right. Dale says, does it keep all the file and folder rights when you upload? So permission settings kept?
The permission settings are considered, I believe, are considered by the owner. It's based, Import Buddy, part of Backup Buddy, takes care of most of that, pretty much. I mean, it's not, because there are just standard folders. You don't have all of the for the most part, yes. I mean, if you were to install here or install on a Linux box or Unix box, that install from the start is going to be the same. Adjusting the permissions to more advanced things is a little different on here than it is on the Unix box. But things like Backup Buddy and other things do keep the same permissions. So like typically when you upload through FTP, it's the FTP user that has the rights, for example. So.
Okay. Next, let's see. Wall says, you were earlier referring to being able to view a bunch of videos inside the structure of a website for viewing offline on your local machine, ? Were you earlier referring to being able to view?
I was talking about, like, let's say that somebody decided to do 13 hours of training some Saturday and record it for you to watch. You can actually take all those videos and just put them on your computer, so while you're watching them, you can jump back and forth to your local server, and you wouldn't have to be connected at all to the internet. You can pull all the cables, turn off the Wi-Fi, and it would all work locally. And that was basically what I was referring to. Grab a book on PHP or on WordPress if you need certain things. This is a self-contained environment, so you can do a lot of things without having a fast connection or a connection at all.
Cool. I like Scott's question. Yeah, Scott's question is awesome. So he says, basically, Kevin, does your workflow need this? Basically what Jerry is showing. Says, I know Jerry is a friend, but so the answer to that is no, my workflow does not need this. That's not to say that I'm not going to start using it. I really plan to. But you have to understand what I typically do. What I typically do is outsource the stuff that's above my technical knowledge. So I employ a full-time coder that creates my themes. Jerry does also coding work for me, etc. I do get my hands dirty mostly in just HTML and CSS more than anything else. And of course, if I'm installing WordPress sites, moving WordPress sites, all that stuff. You can do all that stuff in a completely live environment. So no, don't think that you have to develop locally. You don't. I have been doing this for a long time without doing any local development to the point and time that I speak to you right now. But I do see extreme benefits to doing it, such that I am going to spend the time and probably the money to get premium to start heading in that direction. So if that gives you a little indication, don't think that you have to go out and start doing local development in order to be a web developer, or WordPress web developer, or someone who goes out there and makes money building WordPress sites for clients. You don't.
It has many uses. Not everyone will use all of the uses, and some won't use any. I originally got it to demo sites locally without an internet connection. I've shown up in like restaurants, dead, no 3G connection, no Wi-Fi, nothing. And this allows me to bring up a PHP-based site and show them and give them a demo right then and there. And that was kind of why I originally got it. And then I started doing more, playing with it more on a development side. The nice thing I like about this and why I've recommended it to some people has been, if you're going to play around with it, you don't have to go out and buy a domain. You don't have to go and get another server. You don't have to upgrade your hosting. You can do everything here until you're ready to, make that leap. If you crash desktop server, you don't crash your Windows machine. It's separate. And so, that's what I like about it. And, if you're not even quite sure, I play with the free version. You can do all your WordPress stuff, and I think a lot of you are focused on WordPress. So you want to see what's new in 3.4, but for some reason are not upgrading, or if you don't even have your own live site. That's why I recommend it.
All right, I'll move quickly through these. So Bob says, does it remain as secure as when we first did a manual installation?
Okay, my blueprint is not secure for tonight. I did these 5 minutes before that because I nuked everything that I had. I got rid of all my clients' machines on here, and I started from scratch for this webinar. I didn't remove the README file. I didn't remove extraneous files. My suggestion is to build a solid blueprint that doesn't, that has done the things that we've taught in the security class. Build that up. Make that your blueprint. Then use that and then check on your particular install once like Import Buddy or something has run to see, make sure it's secure at that point. So it's going to be fairly secure if you start with a good blueprint. Like right now, this one right here does have, is it capitalized?
No, all lowercase.
Oh yeah, so hey look, Time Warner, my favorite. So this will have the, is it just HTML?
No, it's,
I might have removed it actually while we were talking.
I think you did.
This has all those files are still sitting in the website's directory. So here's README. I don't know why that's example.dev. So you need to start with a good blueprint, and if you're going to be migrating. If not, during the process of Backup Buddy, you can change certain things, and then you can go in and change some more to make it a bit more secure.
You got close. You got close. You just needed the L.
Oh, but I just lost my. I'm having some problems with.
All right, I think they get it.
So you can do make it fairly secure, but I would always check after even just migrating.
Okay, so let's see. Dale says, will ServerPress run all other, I think we're talking about desktop server here. ServerPress is the website, but desktop server is what Jerry is showing. Run all other PHP software, not just WordPress.
I did demonstrate it running a standard index PHP. I didn't, this is not WordPress at all. There's no WordPress to this at all. This is HTML with all sorts of things in it that have nothing to do with WordPress. So it can't run everything. I mean, not even all servers run everything, but I think the majority of the things you're going to find are going to run on here, as long as you're adhering to good coding practices and stuff. And you can write your own. So.
Wall says, this is cool. Awesome. Let's see.
I could use this desktop solution like Parallels on a Mac if you wanted to connect to run 2 webinar accounts at the same time. Daisy chain. No, that's something different. Yeah, I don't recommend using Parallels unless you have to. That's a Mac Windows emulator. Desktop Press is available for Mac machines, so you can run this on a Mac. There's a Mac version and there's a PC Windows version.
All right. I think last question from Wes. Basically, there's kind of two questions, but they're really wrapped up into the reel. So basically, he's basically talking about moving from the local to an actual live site, because it starts with the extension of .dev and it goes to a .com or .org or .net. When Backup Buddy does that move, if you're using, in fact, Backup Buddy to do the move, it updates the URLs as soon as you do the migration. So you don't actually have to do anything. It happens automatically if using Backup Buddy. If you're not using Backup Buddy, then yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that has to be updated. URL paths to uploads into images and all sorts of stuff.
There isn't, in the premium version, there is an export feature that tries to do a lot of that. But even the guy, when I'm talking with Steve, the guy who's behind this, he's saying, Backup Buddy is a cleaner process if you have it. But you can't just take the files and FTP them up and then FTP, you have to export the database, because there are things that have to change. But some of that's done in the premium version, and all of that's done in using Backup Buddy as a solution. Somebody asked if you do security patching like WordPress says. If you patch WordPress, those stay. The PHP INI changes and things like that we showed, those are server specific, so that doesn't migrate.
Okie doke. I think we're good.
I think we are. So let me hit one of these buttons here, and
yeah, let me double check my machine, make sure that I'm in fact ready. And actually, I'm seeing your entire site so much that I can't even access any of mine. So just go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're going to get into what Backup Buddy does specifically, and that's not specific to Desktop Press or a Desktop Server. Desktop Server just happens to use Backup Buddy really well, and it makes they're a good pair. So.
As you can see, Jerry working on nothing.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Oh, you were saying you're checking something. So yeah, I was like working on going through the questions just to make sure there wasn't anything else. Hit here, and you're the presenter. Woohoo!
Alrighty, so we're back, and hopefully you can see the wordpress.org/download page. If you could just let Jerry know that you can, in fact, see my screen now. Can you all see my screen?
I can see your screen. It's beautiful.
Okay.
For those that want to know, can I just point out one quick thing before we go on?
Yes.
On the right-hand side, there's a link. Don't click on these links, as it's like nerdy stuff. But there's a beta release, like when they're getting close to a new release, and there's a nightly builds. That's where I grabbed the absolute latest version, and there's some other releases. There's also release archive. You can actually go back to 0.071 of WordPress if you really want to get a laugh and install that. But that's where you can get our different versions and such. They stress not to use anything except for the latest, but all that is there, which is if you really want to get into development, or if you have to do support, like somebody says, I have version 3.3.2, you could go back and grab it from there. So that's where I got all the other ones, but I'll let Kevin go.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, so in this section, Jerry and I are going to basically tag team the training. We're going to talk more about Backup Buddy. We're not going to probably cover every single detail and nuance to it, because there is quite a bit. We want to get to the main meat of things. That's basically going through some of the most important settings, showing you some of the stuff that may not even be covered in Backup Buddy's own training that we've found is important to make mention of. Show it how to use it in terms of, or for use of its main functionality, which is backups. And then after that, we're going to show you how to restore a site. Maybe you run into either a situation, your own site or a client site that has become infected with some type of malware, etc., has been hacked. How to restore to the last solid backup, which is cool. So we're going to go over restoration, and then after restoration, when we've completed that bit of training, we're going to come back and cover migration, meaning the ability to move a WordPress installation from one server or domain to another. And we'll talk more about some of the reasons that you might want to do that, because there's more than one reason that you might need to migrate a site. So we'll talk about that when we get into the migration section. So with that, here we go. I'm going to talk, or we're going to show basically two installations during this training. We have livetrainingurl.info. You'll see that it already has an instance of WordPress running. It's just completely bare bones, basic. I even used Fantastico to do the installation. Please, don't do that. But just for the training, I just put it up quick, and we're going to work off of this one. We also have live training URL number 2.info, which you can see is completely devoid of anything. And we're going to start basically by getting into the dashboard for live training URL.info and covering Backup Buddy. So of course, Backup Buddy is a premium plugin. You have to purchase it from pluginbuddy.com. I guess if we take you over there right now, I will point out, let's see here, find me a link I can open up. There's actually a sale going on right now, so if you don't have it and you were thinking about doing it, now's a great time. You can see you can get 30% off right now using code BackupWP30. Don't know how long that lasts, but the coupon is right from the company itself. If you go to Backup Buddy, I'm going to show you just a few different things. And of course, obviously, you may have specific financial challenges, and if that's the case, then of course you can do whatever makes sense for you. But I do want to point out a few things. So this is basically some of the pricing options, and note that, again, Backup Buddy just got completely redesigned and upgraded to 3.0, so a lot of this stuff is just brand spanking new. I think that they even updated the licenses. I think previously it was just the bottom end was a one site license, but now it's two. So regular price $75, of course 30% off of that. You can get two licenses for now $70 at the moment. You can get a 10 license, or a third off of that, back to 100 for an unlimited license. So if you just want Backup Buddy for business use, one of these two might make perfect sense. Of course, if it's your own site, maybe the two license thing works out perfectly for you. Also, before you do that though, you might want to consider one other thing. You don't have to, I'm just saying. Up here it says Best Value Developer Suite All Plugins. Plugin Buddy, through Plugin Buddy, they do have a whole lot more plugins than just Backup Buddy. Some of them I use, some of them I do not, but if you look down at the list, you'll see some of the different plugins that are available, and a lot of these are only available if you get the developer suite. In other words, they're not available separately. Developer suite for all of them, updates for a year is $197, and I'm pretty sure the coupon works off that too. So if some of the other plugins make sense for you, you might want to have a look at that. Entirely up to you. So anyway, once you secure Backup Buddy, which is again what we're showing you, I'm going to open just live training URL over here. So I have the front training site open, and we are in the dashboard. If I go to plugins installed, you will see that I have Backup Buddy already installed on this particular location. So nothing high-tech or crazy here. We really only have just a simple, basic, bare-bones installation of WordPress going on livetrainingurl.info right now. The only additional difference really is you can see that I dumped the Akismet plugin. I also installed a plugin that's free called Under Construction, which is Jerry's preferred plugin to use during basically site work, which you would call maintenance, or there's another plugin out there that I have used in the past called maintenance mode. Anytime that you need to put a site into maintenance mode, basically take it offline from the public while you do some work, you can use a plugin like this. Under Construction is the one that Jerry uses and recommends, and since he's taught me how to use it, at least the basics, I'm going to show you, or we're going to show you. So once you install Backup Buddy, the first thing you have to do is license it to your site. And of course, I've already done that, so I don't have to reveal my username password to you, but you'll get the idea. So Backup Buddy gets installed just like any other plugin. The only additional thing is you have to license it before you can do anything else. So with that, we're going to give you just a quick tour of Backup Buddy, just in general and kind of quick, go through some of the settings, like I said, and then we're going to start on restoring a site. We're gonna add some fake malicious code to the site, show you what it looks like broken, and then show you how to fix it. So under Backup Buddy, you'll see that there's a Getting Started page, and if I go to it, there's all sorts of helpful information, links to training, links to the ebook, etc. Just know that because they just released a brand new version, and you can see right here that I'm using version 3.0.30, which is the latest as I make this. Some of the training has not been updated along with the plugin, which is, it's just a challenge for any product creator like myself who puts out a lot of video training. Every time an update gets made, to have to put out new video training alongside of it is difficult. So just know that some of the training is not fully accurate to the latest version of the plugin. We'll get into each of these areas just like quickly, but the first thing that you want to do after you activated the plugin and generated your license key is to visit Settings, which is the last option in this list. There's a number of things on this page, but we're going to cover just the most important things. One thing to note, they do have a lot of really good information through Plugin Buddy and through the Backup Buddy plugin. Each one of these question marks over here on the left, if you hover over them, it pops up a tooltip, and there's pretty descriptive and thorough information on each one of these. So should you want to know more about items that we are not basically discussing or covering in this training, simply hover over each one of those question marks and you can learn more. The first thing you'll want to do is to input a password at minimum for Import Buddy. We're not going to use Repair Buddy through this training. It's still a beta piece of technology, and I honestly haven't even used it myself yet. I haven't had a need to, so we're not going to get into that. But you can input a password for Import Buddy. Again, it would be important that that would be random, not easily guessable, etc. And that would be wise to do. So that's the first part. The second part down here is you can actually send email notifications if you want to when either backups are scheduled and or completed. If you do, you can just put the email addresses here, and if you want more than one recipient to get it, you can separate them by commas, and more than one email recipient can get these type of emails when either a backup has been scheduled or a backup has been completed. You can also send email notifications if errors occur, so just think about that. Under archive storage limits, you'll see it says maximum number of archive backups, currently set to 0. If you hover over the tooltip, it gives you an example of 10. This is entirely up to you. If you leave it set to 0, it's basically unlimited. It will allow you to store as many archive backups on your server as you would like. If you want to limit this, you can set this to 5 or 10 or whatever that value is. Basically, all that means is when it hits that value and you make another backup, instead of adding it to the server and becoming, let's say it was set to 10 and becoming backup number 11, it will instead wipe out the oldest backup and replace it with the newest, such that you can never exceed that particular value set on your server, which is wise to do. Of course, it's really a better practice not to leave archive backups on your server. And I should say that again, it's really best not to leave your archive backups on your server. You really want to create your backups and then get them off of the server altogether to a more protected environment. Down here, this is really, really important under database backup. By default, it will be checked to only back up the database tables that it finds in the WordPress database. Again, we taught you before, but basically there's 11 different tables that make up the WordPress database. The table prefix for me right now is this prefix instead of WP underscore, which would have been the default. And if you only allow it to set it this way, it will back up all 11 WordPress tables, but it will not be able to back up anything else. And here's what you need to know. That might say, well, that's all I'm trying to do is back up WordPress. But here's what you need to know. Some plugins, even some themes, can actually write custom content to the database. So if they are using custom tables in order to pull that off, if you don't change this to all tables, you can get the primary WordPress tables, but you might miss all of your custom information. And if you don't choose all tables, when you restore or migrate, all of the custom information that's stored in those database tables will be gone. So suggestion to switch this to all tables immediately after you've installed and activated Backup Buddy. Also, if there were additional tables of your database that you wanted to include, of course using all tables, this pretty much gets rid of that need, but you could use this and then also in conjunction with this setting add individual tables, specifically one table per line as it says right here. You could also exclude database tables if you want, but for most users we recommend that you just simply choose all tables and be done with it. Lower down here under directory exclusions, you do have the ability to exclude certain directories. So if you had different directories, like right now I've got this directory that says Dave C. That's a temporary directory and it's really not part of my WordPress installation at all. I really don't want to back this up. It's something I have here temporary and I'm going to delete it sooner than later. So if you want to exclude anything, you simply just click on the red minus and you'll see that it adds it over here. And of course, you don't want to exclude WP admin. That would be very bad. If you want to exclude something that's inside of one of these directories, you can click on the directory name itself. It'll open it up, and then you could exclude basically subdirectories inside. So that's just a little bit of understanding how that kind of works and navigates. Probably for most of you, you won't need to exclude anything, but if you do, that's basically how it's done. Clicking again the red minus symbol will add it to the right, and if you've made a mistake or if you no longer want to exclude something, just delete that text from your list. All right, down here under troubleshooting and compatibility, this top box will come by default out of the box with Backup Buddy will come unticked, and it's talking about lock archive directory for high security. Here's what that basically means. When a database is made, initially it's stored on your server. After that happens, and if you don't have this ticked, someone could, of course it would be hard to do because the Backup Buddy files that it creates are random and long, and it would be very hard for someone to just automatically know the file path. But if someone did get access through a browser, and it's totally a different story if they got server level access, but if they could call up the file in your browser without this ticked, it would actually allow them to download that particular backup. I just don't see a reason to leave this off. If you enable it, You basically enhance your security because no longer would someone be able to put the URL string in their browser and through HTTP basically download your backup directory from your server. The only way to do it is if they were already logged in, and if they're already logged in, then of course you already know that you have huge security issues. So under the main settings, we have covered everything other than the remote stuff at the bottom, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that that only protects HTTP downloads. It doesn't. You can still download it via FTP, so it doesn't block all downloading, but it keeps it so that you can't do it through the browser. That should be it.
Okay, so then at the very bottom, there's a new area that says remote offsite storage / destinations. Through this area, you can manage where you can send the backups off-site, basically off the server into another. You can actually use, and you can actually use more than it shows here. They haven't updated this information, but you can use Amazon S3. You can use a service over at Rackspace called Cloud Files. You can send it to yourself or someone else via email. You can send it to another server via FTP, and they've also added, and you'll see when I click this, Dropbox. So you can see these tabs up here now. So if you want to send the backups basically to some other server, either manually and or through scheduling, you can do that. Simply all you do is just click on the appropriate tab and then enter the details below for each particular option. So like right here, this is the FTP options because I have the FTP tab open. If I wanted to send it to my Amazon S3 account, I could click this and then basically just follow the information given to you through these tooltips in order to fill in the fields, etc. I'll just cover FTP. We're not going to go into each one of these additionals. Just know that they're available to you. I do already have one FTP thing set up, and I have it set up basically to FTP to the other demonstration domain that we're going to show tonight, live training URL number 2.info. And you'll see why as we go through the training. Of course, if you have another server, or if you want to upload your client's sites to your server such that you keep all the backups on your server after removing them from theirs, which is totally legitimate to do, then basically you would just set up your FTP information. And I would recommend that you create a new account, a new FTP account that was simply for doing that work and no other. It would really be best if you create an FTP account that gave you access to a particular directory on your site rather than giving full access to the public_HTML root directory. Maybe call it client backups or something, and then forward all of your client backups over into that directory with a special FTP account that only would allow someone to get into that directory and no other. That would really be best for security's sake. So with that, you simply just give it a destination name. This isn't anything special. It's just, my client backups, my client, or my web server for client backups. That might be even more descriptive. You put in your server address. You can see here you put in basically ftp.domain.extension, which you can see up here in my address bar for live training URL number 2. You put in the FTP username, the FTP password, and then if you are using a remote path, in other words, a particular place on your server that you are going to upload these as opposed to just the root, then you can look at this example here. You can see where it says /public_HTML/backups, and note that there is no trailing slash after the word backups. However, because your server setup may be different, we can't promise you that's actually, it's down here, that's exactly the path that you're going to want to use. But if your root directory is public_HTML, basically you just type /public_HTML/ whatever client backups, just like this, and it will store all of the backups in the client backups directory inside of your root directory. Of course, if your root directory is named something else, if it's htdocs or something else, you'll need to make sure that you use the appropriate path for your server. Next is the archive limit, and again, it's the same exact setup that we talked about earlier. If you leave it set to 0, it will allow you to upload a unlimited amount of backups. If you set a value here, it will start to wipe older backups and replace it with newer. Of course, if you're really dropping in all of your client backups into one directory, you're going to probably want to leave this to 0. Otherwise, you could actually set up FTP accounts and specific directories, or one FTP. Actually, you would need multiples. You need multiple FTP accounts and multiple directories if you wanted to store your client backups individually, keeping them separate from others, which is probably a wise thing to do as well. FTP encryption, Jerry and I tried to set this up with SFTP, and we couldn't get it to work. So I don't know if that's something that's part of Backup Buddy 3.0, if it's a bug or if it's just the setup, but if you look at the tooltip, it'll tell you that it's basically Backup Buddy is set to use what's called FTPS, which uses basically it's encrypted over SSL, as opposed to SFTP, which is encrypted through SSH, and it says that basically SSH is not compatible or equal, so we haven't figured that out. Jerry, have you figured it out?
No.
Okay.
I think though if you can do HTTPS on the remote site, it uses the same, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. So at the moment, basically you're just using the raw. So the server address again would be ftp.domain.com, whatever that happens to be, the username, the password, the remote path. And when you're done, you can just click the test these settings button, and it'll go to the FTP server and test it and make sure that it can, in fact, access it. And if you get a notice that says everything is fine, then everything was input correctly. And if you get a failure notice, you'll have to figure out through their training material what might have gone wrong. So, yes.
If you click edit, you can show that. But the one thing. So you can just click here. The one thing to note is that it will make, if you have like public HTML and you put a directory into there, it will try to make that directory if it doesn't exist. If the directory exists but this user does not have right permissions, it will fail. So that was one aspect to be concerned with.
Yeah, good call. It's really best if you're using a directory name that isn't currently on the server, because like Jerry says, it will dynamically create it when you go through this process. Anyway, our point is this. You're going to see that we're going to use this FTP account to do the auto migration in the second portion, so we needed to show you how this works so you get an idea. So if you do have the FTP details for the other site, if you're going to use Backup Buddy to migrate, that's typically why you're going to want to create a new remote destination via FTP, exactly like we just showed you. So with that, we've covered all of the settings. Again, after activating Backup Buddy, making sure that it's licensed to your site, the first thing we suggest you do is go to settings and then follow our directions for this page. If you get stuck and you need help, you can always go back to the Getting Started page because, like I said, it has links to a lot of training. In terms of these other things, you'll see that, again, there's the malware scan. This is just using the service over at securi.net to run a malware scan. It's the exact same service that you can run yourself over at securi.net, sucuri.net. So I won't recover that. Yeah.
It does most. It doesn't do everything it doesn't show everything that security shows, but it is effectively the same. And one thing to note, right now, if you run it, there's a link for discounted security. So if you're thinking about getting security, get Backup Buddy, then get security.
There you go. Your server information tab will just show you the specific information about your server setup, Just click it real quick. We won't cover everything, but you'll see it's going to tell you what your WordPress version is, what your MySQL version is, what your PHP version is, etc. So it's just basically just server information. Scheduling gives you the ability to schedule database backups, either full backups, meaning that it backs up everything, or just the WordPress database itself. You simply just give it a name. So I'm just going to name this full monthly. I'll make it a full backup. The backup interval I want is monthly. That's why I named it that way. You can see that it's giving you the time of date that it will next run. And you can have it actually delete the local backup after it's remotely sent. So if you have a remote destination that you're sending it to, like you're sending it to Amazon S3, which is great to use for this, you can set up the remote destination right here. Once that's set up, you can tick this box, and so it completes the backup, it sends it over to Amazon S3, it deletes the local version off the server, and everything is done in one fell swoop. Really, really simply. However, there is one kind of strange thing to note. Unless you set up additional settings through this particular free plugin that they mentioned, in order to the scheduling process to work, the WordPress cron has to be run. If you're not familiar with cron jobs, it's just the ability to set up a timed event, basically. So it says that in order for that to happen, the only way that scheduled backups basically stay on track is that someone has to visit the site. It says if there are no visits, some schedules may not be triggered. So either you, yourself, or hopefully your site's getting some visitors. If anybody basically visits the WordPress site, it starts the WordPress cron event, basically, and that keeps the scheduling process working. Or you can go through this particular plugin if you want to go through that work and get some more additional cron job control. Okay, just wanted to point that out. So if you are not seeing certain events take place, and we'll even see that here, you just need to visit your site and click refresh, and then you'll see that particular action take place. And once you're done with that, you simply just click the Add New Schedule. And now down here under the lower area, you'll see that we have set up a full monthly backup. The type of backup is full. The interval is monthly. And it's going to say that it's never been run because it hasn't come to this particular date. Yeah, Jerry.
Just wanted to point out, if you don't add remote destinations, it saves locally. Some people just seem to miss that point. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
By default, if there's no destinations, now you can also add multiple destinations, I believe. But if not, you can have different destinations for different things. Like you could, send to Amazon S3 your monthly backup, and send to FTP your weekly backup, and things like that.
All right.
But
so
yeah, by default, it's local.
How many schedules you set and at what intervals you set are really going to be dependent upon how much content is really being added to the site on a regular basis. If this is more of like a blog type site where content's being added almost daily, then you're going to want to run backups obviously more often. But if this is more of a traditional business type site where content might not get added even once a month, then obviously you can schedule backups at a slower interval. Typically for me, for my clients, I set up a full backup monthly, and then I set up a database weekly. So once a week, it will run just a database backup, and once a month, it's going to run a full backup. So I get a full backup once a month, once a week, just the database, which is typically fine. So again, you can set up as many of these as you want, and if you're an extremely heavy user, you can see that it actually will allow you to schedule hourly backups as well. So that's basically what they mean and how it works. And that's pretty much the tour of everything else prior to getting into actually backing up and then doing a restoration. So let's get into that. Let's go to backup first. This is where you manually run backups as opposed to scheduling them. And you'll see that it gives you the ability now, of course, this just changed with WordPress, I'm sorry, with Backup Buddy 3.0. It looks different than it used to, so it's kind of throwing me off. But you get basically two options. You can either do a manual database only backup or a complete backup. You'll see right now that we have a complete backup made on this particular site, and it's still sitting in here on the server. I did that on purpose just to show you that obviously the first thing that you need to do is run a complete backup and have it somewhere such that you can actually use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to download the file to our machine. Okay. What just happened? Nope. Alrighty. Let's try this again. All right, backup, and then Backup Buddy, then backup. We should have the ability to download this file. And it is messing with us. So
it's possibly because of the way the lockout
yeah,
method that we use
but
doesn't always work.
Well, it should, and it probably will. But again, anytime that you put out new tech, there's typically bugs.
But it's failing the correct way. It's going to fail. It fails on the secure side.
So there we go. Yeah. Like we mentioned at the beginning, so much has changed that we've had to go back and relearn. Temporarily, I'm going to untick the high security. This is not something that you want to leave long term, but we're going to do that. Go back to backup. Try it again. All right, so I've completed a complete backup. You'll know that it's a complete backup or a full backup because it says the type is a full backup. It's going to give you a status indication that that particular backup is considered as good. It goes through and checks a variety of the files to make sure that things are in fact intact. And now we're going to download it and hopefully, arg, we have been bitten. Let's see.
Yeah, they did say there's some issues with the lockdown where it doesn't always release.
Okay, let's see here. Let's do something else. Let's oops, what happened? Alrighty. So now the question is, what did I use for the installation? Honestly, I don't really remember. I had everything set up. I doubt I did that. Okay. Well, that's good. At least I wasn't a complete Goomba. Let's go back and open up cPanel. All right, we're going to show you our own trick. We're going to go back very carefully and very quickly to phpMyAdmin. We'll activate the particular database name, which in this case is really unsecure. This is, again, not what you would want to do. Oops, what happened? All right, so here we are. It was admin as this, and the password is something that I don't recall. So I'm going to click Edit. And since we have the ability to update the user password here, even though it's encrypted, I'm going to ensure that we get rid of everything under user_pass and type a password, and I'm going to use MD5 to encrypt it. I'm going to click Go. That gives us the ability to basically update the WordPress password from inside of cPanel through phpMyAdmin. Now I'm going to go open up Chrome again and see if I can log in. And it's not happy with me. And this isn't supposed to happen. Okay.
Wait. Are you in, you're in Live 2 while you're working on Live 1?
Am I?
Or, yeah. Click up, just to show you. Yeah, you're on Live 2 there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
And how you can tell in phpMyAdmin, if you go back to it.
Tell right there inside of.
We can tell there, but in phpMyAdmin, it's up in the URL.
Okay.
It hides up there too. So.
All right. Too many things open. Let's see here. Let's go look at. But that's the same. Well, it was the same because we migrated earlier. Let's see here. Users. Edit. Choose MD5, click Go, and we'll see. We will see. All right, let's see if that changes anything. I don't know if it had to be server, session related. Okay. I don't know why that made a difference, but I think it has to do with cookies and it's something's being stored that probably this would never happen for you, but it did. So anyway, find out where you want to stick the particular backup. For me, I'm going to put it in just a folder that I've already created for the training, and we're going to go ahead and just download it. And let's see here now. Going to have to go back and log in on this one. Okay. Kind of surprised we're still inside. Anyway, we'll see if we stay inside, if we get kicked out here. We basically made a complete backup, and you'll see how that process works. It's really simplistic. We're going to make more of these as we go on. Once the backup file is here, step one is to download the file. Basically, again, get it off of the server, or you can click the send file offsite link, and it will bring up your remote destinations. If I click it here, you'll see what I mean. It'll say, okay, where do you want to send it? You can manually send it to one of your offsite locations as well. For right now, I'm not going to do that. So step one, basically, again, is to make a full and complete backup. And then once the backup is downloaded to your machine and everything's good, the next step is to delete it off of your server to get rid of it. All right, so now we have no backups. No backups are archived any longer on the server. So one of the other things that you need to do is you need to make sure that you get, before we do the restoration process, you need to also download the importbuddy.php script, and they've moved it, and I don't know why. It used to be on this page alongside with the backups, but now I think it's over at getting started. Or maybe it's actually it's not, no, it's at migrate and restore. Okay, these two icons and download areas were previously on backup, and they moved them over here to migrate or restore. So the next thing you need to do is download the importbuddy.php script. You can do it from this link here or click this button here. Either way, it's the same. I've already downloaded it to my machine for speed's sake, so we don't need to basically mess with that again. So you get the idea. We've made a full backup. We've downloaded it to our machine. We've removed it from the server. We've downloaded the importbuddy.php script rather. We've got that on our machine. Everything is good. You know, we've got backup scheduled. Our settings are good. Everything is fine. Well, what would happen And let's go back and view the live site. Now here it is basically, right? We have this simple hello world post, nothing else. What would happen if instead and I'm just going to do this very simply. Make a, now it says submit for review. I am here with some settings. How did that happen?
How did you get to be an editor?
That makes no sense. We didn't even create an editor for this account.
Go to user's profile, see what's going on. At this time, you would revert to your backup.
At this time, yeah. Okay. All users, let's see here. We got administrator level privileges. Something's weird. All right. Well, we expected issues just because of all the new changes, but we didn't expect this. I mean, we had. All righty. Let's try this again. Okay, users. We have administrator level. Okay, we should be able to make that post without a problem. And interestingly enough, it didn't even save the draft content. So, not sure what to say about that. Not sure if this is a hiccup with WordPress 3.4, if this is a hiccup with Backup Buddy, combination of the two, etc. I really don't know. You can see it says submit for review already, just sitting here. Okay, this is not good.
Well, why don't you
I wonder if I can
restore?
Yeah, well, hang on a second. Let's see if we can create a new user. I don't, I mean, technically, if we're really only an editor or something less, if we have to submit it for a review, actually, we shouldn't even be an editor. Let's see here.
That's author.
Yeah, it should be something less. So let's see. We'll create a username.
And the problem that we're dealing with here is not Backup Buddy. Just so, I mean, that we believe it's not Backup Buddy, but we actually did this a whole bunch of times this afternoon with the latest versions of us. So, like I said, Murphy's not here tonight, but I guess he is.
And let's see. Well, we can create an administrator level account. So there we go. All right, everybody remember having fun live. I'm going to write it down right now too.
Remember your password.
Yeah, that I probably won't have a problem with. Oh, email required. Yeah, might as well. Okay, let's see here.
This was a Fantastico install, right?
Yes, it was.
You have, if it just went back, you've got cookie or cache problem.
All right. This is going to kick me out of everything. Oops, that's not what I want. But that's okay.
Yeah,
Adapt and overcome.
Murphy and Fantastico's Fantastico are mates, said Wall. The added user had privileges of none, as Janice said.
The role of none doesn't even exist.
Okay.
We'll go back and look at it with the other one if we have to, but okay. All right.
That's what she read. So we'll see.
The lowest user role is subscriber. It does say none. All right. Okay.
It has no name.
It has nothing.
No username.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do, because we're not going to dink around with this anymore. We're going to just move quickly, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So here we go. We're going to log in to the control panel for this domain. We are going to do that from a secure HTTPS URL. Not that it matters since I'm giving you everything right there, but we're going to enter the cPanel, step number 1. Step number 2, we are going to go and find the file manager, which is here. We are going to tell it to show us the public underscore HTML or the root directory. We also want to tick the box that says show hidden files in case that there's anything messing with us that's a .dot file. We'll click go. We're going to find all of this stuff. We're going to delete it all. Everything except for Dave C.
For the first,
Oops, not CG. Sorry. And we don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm going to click the first, hold shift, click the last, and we've got basically everything, and then woohoo, delete. Of course, don't do this unless you're absolutely positively sure that you want to do it, because as soon as you do it, it's done. Okay, so basically what we have now is nothing other than the Dave C directory. Okay. Now that we've done that, we're going to do the quick and dirty that we don't recommend. We're going to install through Fantastico Deluxe. Something got corrupted. What, I really don't know at this point. We're going to click WordPress. It does say it thinks that it finds an installation. So there's some funkiness going on with, unfortunately, Fantastico. So Jerry and I have run into this issue in the past. Let me see. Let's make sure that we are at the right domain. We are. I'm going to refresh. We should see that all these files disappear. And this, if this ever happens to you, you or a client situation, Fantastico really does muck a lot of stuff up, even more than we've told you. But this is yet another thing. It puts some hidden files that you necessarily can't even see. Some of the files that it drops in here you can see, some of them you can't. Right now we're inside of the root directory and we don't see anything. However, if you double-click the directory, the one that's at the top of the double dots, to go up a level inside the directory, we're going to get outside of the root, and you'll see that there is a dot directory file folder named .fantastico data. And if I double-click it,
yeah, and if you don't have dot viewable, you won't see it. So you might have to change something in your.
Yeah, you might have to set that up through your FileZilla or your FTP program. Not all FTP programs are set up to see dot, or what's referred to as hidden files. I have mine set up to show them. So anyway, what you see here is this file that says installed in root. It's this little file right here that's stopping us from being able to use Fantastico to install it, because right now it thinks that Fantastico is installed in the root, which it's not, but unfortunately it didn't get rid of this file. So I'm just going to right-click and delete, and that file is now gone. And with that file gone, we can go back to this page, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Right here it says current installations. It says only manual upgrade possible, but it thinks that there's an installation of WordPress when there is none. So that's how we knew that there was a problem with what Fantastico had done, just so you know. When I click refresh, we should see that goes away. And here we go again. And it's not. Oh joy. Just double check everything else and make sure that we don't have some other
And unfortunately, you can't click remove in Fantastico because that part of it thinks it's removed.
Yeah, I can show you, but it won't work. So you can say remove it, and it doesn't know what to do. It says the necessary component needed for removal could not be found. So, all right, Fantastico settings file, home live TURL.fantastico data WordPress live training URL. So this might be the actual path that we need to look at right here. Let's see if there is WordPress inside of, and there's yet another file that's sitting in here. Haha, that's messing with it.
Yeah, of course, we're not big fans of Fantastico.
It says no such file. Come on. Oh boy. All right, let's look at it in
yeah.
Let's look at it. We need to go.
Just click on Fantastico data, and then WordPress.
And it shows.
Yeah. Now try to delete it.
Okay. Couldn't get it through FTP, but we got it through File Manager. All right. Hopefully. Okay. Well, that was a bummer, but we got rid of it. So current installations is none. You'll notice that the new installation for Fantastico isn't even the latest before 3.4. It's not 3.4. It's not the stable release before it, which is 3.3.2. It's going to install 3.3.1. This is yet another problem with Fantastico, is depending upon how frequently the host updates it, you can be installing, obviously, older pieces of WordPress software in addition to everything else. So yet another reason to hate Fantastico. So click, and I guess that's really not their fault. It's really the hosts. But here we are. We're going to use Fantastico just for speed. We're going to install in the root. We will basically just make a really unsecure installation. Hopefully this will work, though. Let's see. Site name is fine. Description, I can spell.
Yeah, Fantastico has been updated to 3.3.2, so woohoo, they're still behind.
Okay, so we should have a site back. We should have a WordPress installation. And we do. It's a Nikki Fantastico one, but it's here. And we have the ability now to make sure that that's 2. Get out of that. Get out of this. Go back to control panel for 1. Okay. We have the bare bones installation. We can go and log into WordPress admin just like we could before in the past. Unfortunately, because of how everything has just played out in front of us, and please don't anybody log in and mess around. That would just make things worse.
Yeah, Scott.
So here we are. We've got a 3.3.1 installation. You can see that it's telling us that 3.4 is available and to update. Of course, if this was your live site and if you had real content here, again, you already know what we're going to tell you. The first thing to do before doing the upgrade or updating is to back up. Okay? So because this is clean, there's nothing here that we care about. I'm going to click this button first, and we'll use the built-in updater to update to WordPress 3.4 and hope that this isn't part of the problem. And you can see that we've just finished updating to WordPress 3.4. We still have some updates to make, like Jerry pointed out before. I'll click this. You can see that we're using the latest version of WordPress, so that's fine. Plugins, it's not happy with the version of Akismet, and it's not happy with the version of the 2011 or 2010 themes, which is kind of ironic since all three of these come from the company Automatic, which owns WordPress, and you would think that they would update their own stuff in the latest release of WordPress, but apparently, well, actually, I take that back. This was from 3.1, so that's not entirely their fault. So we're going to skip Akismet because I'm going to dump it. I will tick these boxes and update the themes. Those were updated. I'm going to go to plugins, installed.
Can you just stop for just 1 second when you're here? See how it says there's a new version of Akismet available? That's where the plugins put their notices, just so you know. But,
and I'm going to click delete.
And if you build your own blueprint or master, you can dump it at that point before you even, it never gets uploaded.
Okay, so we're simply left with Hello Dolly. Back to plugins. I'm going to quickly go to plugins, add new. I'm going to upload Backup Buddy straight from my machine. Click browse to find it. Find the zip file. Again, you have to upload the zip file if you're doing it through the built-in WordPress functionality. You upload the raw file if you're using FTP. So I'm going to click install now. And of course, we're likely going to run into an issue. I might need to switch to you while I log in to license it if we need to. We'll see what happens here in a second. Yeah, truthfully, this site, this URL is already it's already licensed to this site. However, and actually it's good. If you have a problem, it'll say manage licenses. And if it already knows it's licensed, it'll come up exactly like this. It's already ready. So thankfully, we don't have to do that. So I'm going to click activate this plugin. Now it's going to say it. So it says the plugin's up to date, but it wants me to manage licenses, and we're going to see if we can. Actually, no, I don't want to expose that either. So Jerry, let me temporarily apologize. Let me temporarily give you the keys.
Okay.
So you can show them something on your end for a minute.
This is the beautiful Backup Buddy page. So, and it has our favorite word all over it, backup. Can everyone see that? Okay, good. So we're over on my.
You can see, everybody can see your site, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Backup Buddy does use a licensing mechanism that is based on use of sites. So it's active sites that have it done. The unlimited one, of course, is unlimited. So he's setting up that aspect of it. The nice thing is you just do that, once when you first put it in, unless you have to reinstall. And there's a management tool, but we're not going to show you that right now. Some people are asking, where is the coupon on the Backup Buddy page? It's hanging up right here. Supposedly good for a couple weeks. Somebody's asking, which big package of plugins, including Backup Buddy, do you recommend for client businesses? It really depends on the business. We recommend Backup Buddy for all the sites. Different ones are going to have different needs. So it's really up to what is going on. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, here we send you back. And I'll try to click that again.
Okay, so we here?
Can everyone see the Backup Buddy plugins page on Kevin's site? Yes.
Okay, so basically you just click the button down to manage licenses. You have to put in your username and password for your membership site over at Plugin Buddy. And then you can basically just attach this particular domain to your installation of Backup Buddy. And the cool thing is, I have the developer's license because I use this for my clients, and I have an unlimited license that allows me to do, this as many times as I'd like. But even if you had, there's something to think about, even if you had like the 10-site license or even the 2-site license, you can take and migrate sites from one to another, that part does not require an additional license to move it. It only requires you to basically run a full backup. So if you just, even if you only had the 2-site license, and if that plugin was running, at least if you could license it to the site that you were going to make the backup of, then you could basically move it to some other site, get it set up, and then basically just dump the Backup Buddy plugin altogether. It wouldn't, be able to stay and continue to do backups, etc., without a license. But you can actually move it to a variety of sites that you don't have licenses for. You just can't basically activate or use that functionality on that site without a license. I hope that made sense. All right, so let me look at my list of things to do. I apologize, this wasn't in the plan. So we have a WordPress installation done, basically. The first thing that we need to do is go look at settings
You're
again.
Messing up. Hang on, Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Your audio just started getting really bad.
Okay. I'll slow down. Can everyone hear me now? Is my audio okay now, Jerry?
Your audio seems to be good. Can everyone hear me? Not that that's important.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, well, mine says connecting to audio now. It's acting bizarre. So.
Okay, you sound good
yes
for me.
Both.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to go.
So we basically are starting from the beginning now. We put in Backup Buddy. We activated. We licensed it. We activated the plugin. We're kind of starting right at the very beginning again. So again, like I said, the next step is to go to Backup Buddy settings, to put in a password, at least for Import Buddy. Again, use something that's secure, random, not something easily guessed. You can basically skip most of this stuff except to remember to choose all tables. And note that because of Fantastico, again, it gave us the default generic WP underscore database tables. That's important to note because through the restoration process, we can actually fix that. People have asked me all the time, how do you improve the security of an existing WordPress installation? And this is part of the process that I use to do that. I actually use Backup Buddy as part of a security solution to change the database table prefix. So you'll see how that gets done. So we've chosen all tables. I will again exclude a particular directory. At the moment, I'm going to leave this security thing off, but remember that we would recommend that you lock the archive directory for high security at least when you're finished. It should work fine. It should work very stably, but I'm not sure exactly what the problem is that we're experiencing tonight. I'm going to click Save Settings. And those settings were done. We need to go back and set up the remote destination since it's wiped that as well. So you get to see how that's done. We're going to set up the FTP. Again, you give it a name, whatever that makes sense for where you're sending the files to.
The server address can either be a URL like ftp.livetraining url2.info, or it can be an IP address.
The username and password for the particular FTP account. We're going to leave the remote path. We're leaving it blank, or you want?
If we leave it blank, we can show it how it shows up in the root as opposed to in public HTML.
Okay, so I'll just leave the remote path blank. We'll leave the archive.
To edit it when we do a migration
though. So what's best? Put it in public underscore HTML?
Yeah, just /public underscore HTML with no trailing slash.
No trailing slash. Okay, we're going to test the settings. Says it's good, so at least that's good. And we'll click the button to add the destination. Remember to do that, otherwise it won't actually save it.
Someone asked how large of a site will it back up, and it's dependent on your server. A 32-bit server can only back up a 2 gigabyte site, which is huge. But but a typical 64 bit server can do much, in the terabytes if it had to. It would probably time out. So it's virtually any WordPress site should be able to be backed up on a 64-bit machine.
Yeah, and an additional thing to note to that end, there are certain PHP.ini settings, like the max execution time, that you may have to alter. You may have to configure to something more. This particular service by default, this particular server by default is set to only allow a max execution time of 30 seconds. So if the process takes longer than that, it times out. So you may have to increase certain values, but it's all server specific.
Yeah, and there's troubleshooting information from the Plugin Buddy site on how to do that. That said, though, you can't. You also have limitations on where you're sending it to. I believe Dropbox is limited to 25 megabytes, for example. And email, it depends on your email. If you're using email mode, which I think was actually removed, it looked like. So it just depends on where you're also sending it to, what your destination is.
Okay, so Backup Buddy's installed, activated. We've updated the minimal settings that need to be changed. We added a remote FTP destination, tested it. That should be good. The next thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to delete that previous backup. I don't want to accidentally mix up and choose the wrong one. So the next thing to do is go create a backup. We'll go to backup. We'll choose a complete backup. You see that it starts to run. Because this site is brand new, it doesn't have a whole lot of content here. It runs real fast. You can see that we got a green success symbol. The archive file for this particular backup, the entire backup backing up everything, was 6.12 megabytes. You click this button basically to download the backup. You get this ability. We'll put it right back to where we were, this time getting a new one, hopefully completely clean and intact. Now you basically get to see the entire setup. We were going to basically just skip some of this, but you get to see everything. We'll click back to backups, take us just to the full backup page, and you'll see if we had multiple backup files, they would all be listed. You'll see again that it was a full backup, that it says that the status is good. You'll see that it took a total of 8 seconds to complete the full backup, etc. There's just some more information. Of course, date and time when it was created. And the date and time is stored in the file name, just so you know. It includes the word backup, the actual URL, the extension, the year, the month, the date, and then some random text, a random string basically before the .zip to make it unguessable. So now that we have that stored on our machine, the next thing to do is to delete it. And you'll see that we have no backups. Okay, I think we should be good. Let me just again look at my notes. I think we're back to a good position where we were when everything started to go wrong. So hopefully nothing goes wrong from here on out. So we've got this site again, it's simulating the fact that we've got a beautiful site that we've added content to, maybe for months, maybe for years. Everything's been going good. We've been running routine backups, and all of a sudden we find someone has hacked our site and left some malicious code. And I'm just going to simulate that by adding a new post again, and hopefully everything works this time. So
far, so good.
Hey, I see a publish button.
Yeah. Woohoo!
Okay, so.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, GH hacked you and left you a nasty gram. They actually sometimes do that. It's anonymous. It's famous for that, right, Jerry?
Yes. Scott says better than Scott. Yeah.
So that's the thing. So either you or your client trips across and somehow you find out, whoops, you got something running on your site that you shouldn't have, and you know that neither you or your client added it. There's a problem. So this is basically the part of this training where restoration becomes really important, and Backup Buddy makes this entire process very, very quick and easy, provided, of course, all the technology is working as it's supposed to. This is going to give you the ability, rather, to restore to your last known complete backup that you believe to be, of course, free of malware and or malicious code. A quick note, we're not going to go into showing you how to do this, but you could use Jerry's training with the desktop server, or of course you could use a which would be the safest way to go, or you could use a development domain, and prior to restoring you could install the, kind of like a migration, you could install the last complete backup for the site and then just scan the files. Just ensure that it in itself was free of malicious code. If it's not, of course, restoring to a particular backup that has malicious code is simply going to just, it's going to restore whatever you basically are bringing across. So that's just one other point I will make. You do want to be certain that whatever you're backing up or restoring to, rather, is actually clean and free of malicious code. So if you are certain of that, then basically this is how it gets done. The first thing we would recommend is that you put the live site, in maintenance mode. Again, there's a variety of plugins that you could use to put the site into maintenance mode. Jerry uses and recommends Under Construction, which is free from the WordPress.org directory, and that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to click Add New. In the search box, I'm going to type in the words Under Construction, and I know it's kind of weird because it's not, a brand new site. It's more like maintenance, but it's a good plugin. It's the second one in the list as I make this. What you need to pay attention to, it's the one by Jeremy Massel. So don't think it's always going to be the second listing because these things change. Just look for Under Construction by Jeremy Massel if you want to use this particular plugin. Click Install Now. Say OK. We will return to the plugin installer page. Oops, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to the full backup page, and we see Under Construction. I'm going to go ahead and activate the plugin. Once it's activated, you'll see that word activate changes to settings, and you want to do this before doing anything else. So I'm going to click settings, and I'm going to show you what Jerry basically taught me in terms of using this. Firstly, even though the plugin was activated, it's really not being used just yet, so in order to fully activate it, you have to turn it to on. The second part of this puzzle is under the HTTP status code. There's 3 different options, and the one that you want to choose is HTTP 503. Basically, this just tells the search engines that currently service is unavailable to your website, and you can see the statement here. It basically tells Google that the page isn't ready yet and cause your site not to be listed until the plugin is disabled. You don't want to do a 301 redirect. That's a permanent redirect, and that's not the way to go. And telling it that everything is okay is going to allow them to continue to index icky stuff, and you don't want that. You basically just want to tell them, for the time being, please, stay away from indexing the content until we basically turn this sucker back off. So 503 is what you select.
It's slightly misleading there. It's going to tell Google that the site's just unavailable right now, but don't change that, but also don't get rid of what it already has. So it's not saying not to be listed. It's just saying, wait, we'll be back soon. And most search engines handle that as either you're overloaded and they'll be back, as opposed to putting your page up.
Okay, and then next is restrict by role. It says only users at or above this level will be able to log in. So you really only want administrators to be able to log in to WordPress at this point. everybody else is restricted until this plugin is disabled, basically. And then that's pretty much it. You can leave the default setting for the under construction page. This is going to be something that we're only going to leave up for a short time. Might be 30 to 60 minutes, might be 90 minutes, but it's not going to be long. So click Save Changes. And for all of you that are currently looking at the site, if you go look at livetrainingurl.info right now, if I bring up Chrome from earlier, you should be seeing a page that looks something like this. Basically, it just says it's coming soon. So temporarily just locking out the public. This is really important to do because you don't, especially on a site that has the ability to get user-generated content like comments. If comments are open on the site, you don't want anybody being able to add any new content, because that obviously writes that data to the database, and we want to lock out any dynamic change, and of course anyone else that doesn't or shouldn't have access to the site. We want to lock them out while we're doing the work. So that's what you should be seeing right now. However, as a logged in administrator, you need to know that even with this plugin activated, you'll be able to go everywhere you want, and I can go ahead and view the front page of the site. It's still refreshing, but you can see that I can still view the site without a problem. So I can see the front page of the site. I can see anything and everything I want. I can log into WordPress, etc. That's all good. You still have, of course, an infected site. So step one basically is to put the site into maintenance mode, regardless of which plugin you use, whether that's under construction or maintenance mode or some other. That's basically item number one. Yeah, Jerry.
Just want to stress that you should do this as fast as possible, and you don't have to make a pretty under construction page or whatever. If you really want to, just with this particular plugin, set it the way Kevin showed, get it out there, and then you can always go back and make a pretty HTML page and all that. But the first thing you want to do is just cut off any users, because you don't want to infect them. You don't want more damage done.
Yeah. So the next step might sound weird. It's just good practice, just from experience. This is really coming from Jerry's experience. So just understand that. I'm not going to go through the process. I'm just going to tell you what we recommend. Might seem weird, even though we know we have an infected site, but we do recommend that you make a complete backup through Backup Buddy, even though that you have the malicious code. Once you've backed it up and you download it off your server, our recommendation is that you change the file name to include something like malware or infected, or something that right at the very beginning of the file that particular file has the malicious code on it, not to use it for backups, but just so that sometimes you might need to prove something to a client. It's just good practice, basically, just to have it. So now that you've basically backed up the malicious site and you've downloaded it to your machine and you've renamed the file such that you know specifically that particular backup is the one that has malware, the next thing obviously you need to do is delete it off your server. Do not obviously leave it on your server. You don't want to go restore Backup Buddy and then basically have that on your server. So after all of that, here's just a couple of other suggestions. Since you have malicious code on your site, you have to start thinking about how that was possible. How was it possible that someone basically infected your site to begin with? And it can be really hard to discover the individual path that was taken in order to make that happen. So it's best to basically start from the top and work your way down and basically just close all the doors. The first thing I would recommend that you do is to log back into cPanel, find your ability to update your cPanel password, wherever that might be for you. Let's see, I missed it. Change password right here in cPanel. Change your cPanel password. If it was possible that they somehow got into your cPanel, you want to basically make them so they can't get back in. Same thing with FTP accounts. I would recommend that you update any and all FTP accounts, change your passwords on those in case that they got in through FTP. And then, of course, as part of this process, we're also going to change the WordPress admin passwords as well in case that they were capable of actually hacking and getting in through your WordPress login page. So basically try to close all those doors. And of course, I guess I should back up even further. Before all of that, it really would be wise to scan your machine, the machine that you're going to use to do all this work, to make sure that it is in fact free of malware as well. So with that done, looking back at my notes, we need to create a new database. So we're going to create a new database on the same exact server that we're going to restore. So basically the process works exactly like we've shown you. I'm going to move really, really fast here. Number one, create a database. Again, let's see, I'll use this. random.org/passwords is a good place to use and start. Get some random passwords. Again, the longer the better. I'm just going to click go for now. I'd really typically use 12 plus as far as the character strings, but you get the idea. So use a random password generator to generate random passwords, and then use this content basically when creating the new database. So you get the idea. I'm going to just give you the idea there, and then what I'm going to do is just basically go back and make it fast and icky.
Yeah, and watch the security video, and we'll go through how to properly set up your site.
Okay. Yeah. So
don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home. Yeah, these need to be really secure.
Don't do this at home. Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, if you just got hacked, the last thing you want to do is make it easy for somebody to hack you again.
Yeah, and you don't want to upload to the same database because you don't know what access they might have had to that database. So you really do want to set up a new database. And with Backup Buddy's import, it's easy to migrate to a new user, new database name, new database tables, and all that.
Yeah, and the beauty of this is exactly what Jerry just said. In addition to being able to create a clean database, we're also going to be able to harden some of the security. One of the security issues with Fantastica was the database tables were left at WP_, and we're going to be able to change that through Backup Buddy through this process. So we're not only going to get a clean install, but we're going to get an install that's even more secure than it started off with, and that's a really good thing, especially if you have, starting with a hacked site. So we basically logged into cPanel. We've created and logged all of the information that we're going to need for this restoration process. You saw how I just did that, just copying and pasting the actual database name, username, and password. And let's see. So next, basically going to log into our site. Just open up a new tab so it's a blank page. We're going to open up FileZilla. Minimize this just a bit. And we're going to basically browse back to our root directory. You can see right now at the moment we are actually outside of the root directory because of all of our craziness earlier. So I'm going to double click and go into public_HTML, and now we have WordPress back and installed. Of course, in all of its ickiness because of Fantastico. They even leave the config sample file here. So just make sure that you watch the security video before doing this. Don't use Fantastico. That's our recommendation. So we have a WordPress installation. All of the WordPress files are here. Now, typically, when you're migrating, you're going to start with a clean slate, and WordPress won't even be installed. But since we're basically restoring, we're restoring a site, you can leave all the files completely intact. What we need to do, though, is we need to upload the clean backup zip file, and we need to upload Import Buddy, which, of course, I can't find. Wow. Okay. So here's how to do that. We are inside of Backup Buddy. Again, we go to Migrate, Restore. This link or this button, and you can save the file to your machine, and that's where I want it. All right. We're doing everything live. All right, so with that, we'll go back to the server. We're logged in to our root directory. Again, you want to be in the root for wherever your WordPress installation is. Find your proper, clean, tested backup zip file and import buddy, import buddy.php, and just drag them into your server. There's only 2 files. It won't take all that long to complete the upload process. We're almost 70% done already. Okay, cool. So with that done, we basically point our browser to our domain name / import buddy.php, the full entire file name, import buddy.php, all lowercase, and hit enter. And if everything is going well, we get this page. The first thing that you're going to have to do is to enter your import buddy password in order to use it. And this, of course, is a really important step, which is why we showed you how to do this firstly inside of settings. So whatever that password happened to be, enter it, click authenticate. It'll check it to make sure that that password is legitimate. And if it is, you're going to get access to step 1 of 6. Okay, couple things you need to know. Number 1, hopefully you only have one backup zip file sitting on the server, just the one that you want to restore to. You do not want multiples sitting on your server. Of course, if you follow our best practices, you've been removing them either through remote file sending and automating the removal, or if you're doing this manually, you've been removing them right after you download them to your machine or send them to FTP. If you had multiple backup files, then clicking this drop-down menu would show you your list, and you'd have to figure out which one you wanted to use. If that's the case, my real recommendation to you is that you go remove the files via File Manager or through FTP prior to going forward. You really don't want to start making all these backups of backups, and of course these other backups could in fact be infected themselves. So you really only want to start with just the first clean one. You're also going to get a notice or a warning down here that says that it's already found WordPress installed, and it's saying that we should remove it prior to migrating or restoring. This is somewhat of a misnomer. You do want to remove, you don't want WordPress on the server if you're migrating. In cases where you're restoring a site, you can certainly proceed exactly as I'm just showing you right now. So just basically disregard this information if you're restoring a site. Click Next Step. It's going to take us to step 2 of 6, obviously. It's going to basically unzip that backup file, and if all has been done well, you will see file successfully extracted. Thankfully, woohoo, it worked. Step 3, it says, here's where you get the ability to update your URL and database settings. So it's populating the WordPress URL. If you had a custom site address in your general settings area inside of WordPress, in other words, you're using a different location for installing WordPress differently than your homepage URL, you would need to update this. But if that's not the case and that's not what we teach, then if you're just following our training, then you just simply leave this alone. Scroll down a little bit more. You'll see that we have these values to update, and these values are exactly kind of like we taught you originally with the WordPress installation through the manual or the guided process. Generally speaking, localhost will be correct, and it's getting these values from your current server setup. So more than likely, they're going to be perfect because you're restoring to the same server environment. So it's not likely that you're going to need to change. However, we have created a new database, a new user, a new password, and we've changed the WordPress table prefix as well, or we're going to actually as part of this process. So let me open up this. We have the database name here. And again, you can see how secure theirs were, WRDP1, which is the default for Fantastica that everybody knows.
Although we don't recommend the one we're using.
Yeah, even though that's true, it is more secure than theirs. It's just not.
Fantastica has the same, and some of the other installers do this similar.
Again, you really want to use ICKY, can't guess, no dictionary word, database names, usernames, strong ICKY passwords, etc. But right now, here's the time that you get to change the table prefix. So I don't know. I'm just typing garbage. And since I have the opportunity to, I'll go ahead and store that value in my running document as well, just for future use. All right, so with the new values here, you can click the test database settings, which is wise to do. Make sure that it can, in fact, log into the server. You should see success at every level. If you don't, then it's likely that you've made an error in the settings and you need to check them. Click next step. So step 4 is the database import. We're getting a warning. It says that it was unable to write the htaccess file. This is because the htaccess file in this particular case, it didn't exist. And it didn't exist because, generally speaking, not every server setup, but most servers actually only create the .htaccess file when you update the permalinks. And since I didn't update the permalinks, you watched me do the entire install. We didn't mess with permalinks. Because of that, the .htaccess file does not exist on the server. And of course, since it doesn't exist, it can't write to it. You likely will not see this error on your setup. It really doesn't matter. We can go back in and change permalinks once we do the restoration. Of course, if you had permalinks set up, then this isn't going to happen to you. So initial database import complete. That's good. We're on step 4. We're almost done. Click next step to get to step 5, which is database migration. It goes through and it updates all of the URLs, all the paths, etc., which is one of the most brilliant part of this whole process, because to do this manually is just much more complex and time consuming. So that part's done. Now here's one thing that we're going to guess is probably not going to work, and it can be server dependent, and it may only be right now because of the new Backup Buddy version. My previous use of the Backup Buddy plugin prior to updating to 3.0, this generally worked for me. Basically, it's going to try to remove the 4 temporary files and or directories that Import Buddy creates in order to do its magic. It's going to try to clean them up for you. In our testing earlier today, Jerry and I both found that this was failing for us. So no big deal. If it fails, we'll just show you how to do it manually, which is good to know anyway. So click Clean Up and Remove Temporary Files, and we'll see what we get. Okay, so we get an error.
Yeah, okay.
And it says it's a PHP timeout or fatal error, and we can guarantee you that this was not a PHP timeout. You'll see down here that it's giving you some information if this happens, that you can actually look at the php.ini setting for max execution time, something I referred to earlier. But I can guarantee you that's not the case. So what the specific case is right now for Backup Buddy, I really can't tell you, but 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, we're going to show you how to fix it regardless. So
today the link down below doesn't work. It goes to the wrong page. There is a list of error codes there. They just haven't linked it yet. So if you do a search on error codes, it tells you exactly what that just already told us. So in case you're wondering why we're not going there.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to my fancy blank tab, and we'll look at the server again in FTP. I'll click refresh. I'll click cancel, since again I'm in SFTP and I get timed out frequently. I want to see the success message up here, directory listing successful. Okay, so here's the deal. Import Buddy has created a directory called Import Buddy. It has created a, well, we uploaded the importbuddy.php file. There is also the pb_importBuddy settings. And what am I missing? Jerry?
The directory?
No?
Import Buddy directory?
Oh, the backup. I'm sorry. That's the fourth. So the zip file is one element of the four. The import buddy directory is element 2. The import buddy.php script is element 3. And the pb_import buddy settings.php script is element 4. There's 4 elements that you want to remove. Now, you can do it straight here through FTP. It just takes longer. So because time is of the essence, we are going to do this through File Manager. And what we want to remove is the import buddy directory right there. I'm going to hold down my control key. I'm going to click on the backup zip file. I'm going to get rid of importbuddy.php and pb_importbuddy_settings.php. I'm going to pause right there just for a second so you can see each one of those 4 elements. Import Buddy is a directory or folder. There's the backup zip file, importbuddy.php, just a singular PHP script file, and then pb_importbuddy_settings.php, which is also an individual PHP script file. With those selected and nothing else, being very careful, click delete. Say yes if you're sure, and those are now gone. So we can refresh the server and see that that has actually taken effect. So we basically just did what it was trying to do. Let's see here. Not sure if I still have that page up. Yeah. So in step 5 of 6, you can see that it was trying to do file cleanup, and it was trying to remove those 4 elements. And in our setup for this demo, it couldn't, so we did it manually. Okay, so looking back at my notes, we basically just restored back to it. I'm going to look at my notes just real quickly and make sure I haven't missed anything. We've gone through the on-screen instructions after uploading the backup zip and the import buddy to the server, to the root. We've gone through all the following, the on-screen instructions, and then we manually removed the import buddy files because the automated functionality did not work. Okay, now here's what you need to know. More than likely, even though we've restored the site, and if I go look at the live site right now, you will see that the malicious post is gone. We have cleaned up, in effect, whatever malicious code was dropped between that last clean backup and this point in time. It's gone. So the restoration is complete. The problem is right now there's still some setting stuff to do, but because of the restoration, some things, at least in our testing, did not stick. And one of those things is the under construction plugin setting. So Jerry, can you confirm if you go to livetrainingurl.info, are you seeing the under construction page, or are you seeing the live site? I'm guessing you're seeing the live site.
Let's see. Training info, I am seeing the live site.
Okay, you shouldn't be. We're not done. So my first suggestion is, and I'll put out my notes to everybody, but my first suggestion is you immediately go into your server, go to plugins, and the first thing before doing anything else is to reactivate under construction. It didn't stick. You can see the backup buddy stuck, but under construction for some reason did not. So reactivate under construction. After it activates, revisit the settings page and just double check that that's correct as well. See if that's stuck, and it didn't. So it's off. We want 503. We want restrict except for admin and everything else is good, so click Save Changes. You're going to have to do that process the second time and as quickly as possible. So now that that's the case, we've restored and we've locked basically others out of it again because we're not finished. So now that that's the case, my suggestion is we already talked about cPanel password changes and FTP account password changes, and making sure that our own machine was malware free, etc. But you also have the ability to update your WordPress users. So under users, all users, since you're the admin, you can facilitate this. I would change the passwords to something strong for each one of the users, regardless of their level, and then just send them their new password information. And if they complain as to why that was necessary, you can just explain to them that their site was hacked, and you're the hero of the day that just restored them back to a good position. But it's really best practice to make sure that all the passwords get reset to something strong and icky, and to advise them basically not to immediately go set it back right to where it was. So that's the next thing. Before obviously releasing the site back to the world, you want to go through the site front to back and make sure that everything is exactly the way that it should be. Some of those things that you're going to want to check, in addition to obviously just your content and pages, you're going to want to check your plugins like we just did, to look and make sure that they're there, to make sure that any of them that should be activated are, and if they're not, to go through that process again. You're going to want to look at your custom WordPress menu to make sure that that's set up the way it should be. You're going to want to look at widgets. You're going to want to look at your settings, all of your settings for your general. Basically just spend whatever time is necessary just to ensure that everything is exactly the way that it should be prior to opening this back up. Once you are sure that your site is truthfully ready for the world, prior to doing anything else, my suggestion is that you go right back to Backup Buddy, you go back to Backup, and you make a complete backup of the restored site. I know it kind of seems redundant since you really started this whole process from a clean backup, but now that you've gone back and double-checked everything, I recommend that you make a full, complete backup. You download it off your server, you delete it off your server, and that's pretty good. Now, lastly, before you do the full process, my recommendation to you is that you log back into your site cPanel. Go back to the cPanel for your account. Let me double check that I'm at the right place. I am. We no longer need the old icky database. We are on the new one. So you basically find your databases. This time, rather than use the wizard, go into the full database option, and you'll see we have a variety of databases and we have a variety of users. So being really cautious, obviously, that you don't delete the wrong things. You can refer back to your running pad and make sure that we created demo live and demo use for the user. So we know that demo use is good. We can't delete it. And we know that demo live is the right database. We can't delete it. You have to obviously know about these other ones, but all of these for me on this particular site are bad. Part of my testing earlier today. So again, just be absolutely certain you know what you're doing before you do it. But the old database that was potentially corrupt is the one that you need to remove. And hopefully for you, you only have one database and then one user that you need to get rid of to access the database. But whatever your particular situation is, that process needs to be gone through. Again, this just makes it harder because you don't know specifically how the hacker gained access, and if it was through the database, you just don't want to leave these things sitting there. Again, got one more, and this part's done as well. hopefully, not every situation will look the same. You may have multiple databases and users running, or multiple users for the database, but in most situations, you might find that you end up with a singular database and a singular user for that database, the brand new one, and all is well. So with that, since everything is good, you can determine what you want to do. You might even determine to run another full database backup and download it off the server. Whatever you feel necessary to do. Just make sure that you have good backups and the site is restored. And then lastly, you can just go back and basically take the site out of maintenance mode. So go back to plugins, to installed, and at the moment you can just go to deactivate. You can deactivate the plugin, or you can go to settings and turn this to off, why is that off, Jerry?
Did you not save it when we changed it?
I don't know. I'm going to go.
Okay. It's off externally.
I'm going to go in and out. So you see it's on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saved it. All right, I'm going to go somewhere else.
You did save it?
I did. I promise.
Sure?
I promise. Plugins installed. Let's see.
It's settings. Also under settings.
Something's wrong.
Change it and click it again. Just click on and then go down. Yeah, and just choose save settings. I think there might be a problem with Fantastico in 3.4. Okay, so it's definitely saved.
Yeah.
But I don't see it saying saved anywhere. I thought it said save when it saves. You can go to settings and. Okay. Yeah, it's acting like Fantastico is.
I would test this, and if this doesn't work, look for maintenance mode. I'm not saying that this plugin is the problem, but something's wrong.
Yeah, I've never had it do that to me, so I've used it on all.
It's just the way it is this evening. Okay,
yeah,
so
something's weird.
I know that there's probably some questions about restoration, but realistically, we have 16 minutes to our noted end, and migration doesn't take that long. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and hit migration real quick, and then we will take any questions that we can. So. We'll probably stay on 10-15 minutes late. So here we go. Migration. Basically understand that the restoration training is done. We finished it. Now we're talking about migration, basically the ability to move a WordPress installation from one server to another, or from one server to a different directory, etc. There are a few different reasons why you might want to make a move. One reason might be that you bought a turnkey site from Flippa or some other provider, and maybe they allowed you to log in and run a full backup buddy backup. You might do it because you're doing that. You're moving basically everything from someone else's server to your own because you purchased a turnkey site. It might be because you are you've outgrown basically your server. This happened to Jerry and I recently. We outgrew a particular HostGator server, and we wanted to move over to Liquid Web, and we used the Backup Buddy functionality to basically move. So the reason that we wanted to move was because we wanted to go to a new hosting company and a new server account altogether, and so that was another reason that you might want to move, either for you or for a client. It might not be that at all. It might be because you want to move from one domain name to another. There can be all sorts of different reasons why you want to move. Additionally, here's another thing to think about. You can actually use Backup Buddy to fully back up a live client site, migrate it to a development domain, even if that's live, on your own server. Set it to private, of course, when you do this work, making sure that, and I would put it under construction as well, such that only you and the client are seeing the actual changes, but you can actually take the client's entire site, move it over, do work, and then move it back. The one problem with doing that, if you're basically moving a live site, working on it, and then bringing it back, is that process might take some amount of time. It might take a few days, might take a week. It really depends just upon how extensive the changes are that you're being asked to make. If that is the case, you just really have to remember that you probably don't want to put their live site under construction for several days or a week. That might not be an option to you, but you should at least turn off the ability for people to leave dynamic content. So I would log in, basically go to, I think it's under discussion, and turn off the ability for people to post comments. Again, it's not going to take down the existing comments, but it's going to take away the ability to post new comments. Turn this off. I would also recommend that you tell the client that during the move that they should not be posting new pages or new post content. If they demand it, then of course you're just going to have to do another database backup prior to that move. So it can be done, but just the easiest scenario is to turn off commenting and basically just tell them not to post new content until the site is fully approved on the development server and then migrated back. So there's a bunch of reasons that you might want to do it, but if you do, basically here's the steps to do it. Step number one is to install and activate the under construction plugin. So while you're doing the migration work, at least, you should put the site into maintenance mode. I'm not going to show you how to do that because we've already gone through that. Step number two is to make a full backup using Backup Buddy. Again, you already know how to do that. Step number three is to log into the new cPanel, the new place that we are moving to. Not the existing, but the new one. In this case, you can see that I'm at live training URL number 2.info. You want to log into the new one, and you want to create a brand new database. So that's what I'm going to do. Of course, I have it in a different place because I want to mess with myself. But here we go. So we're going to create a new database. And I'm going to make this not secure for speed's sake. Please do not do this. Please create extremely secure database names, usernames, and passwords. And then create the user. Give the user all privileges. I'm going to copy this again at this step. And once that's done, you have a new database. We have the first part. So let's go log into the server here via FTP. Let's get out of the other one we've been working on. Let's go open up the second URL. This is a new domain name, and it's on an entirely different server as well. So we're going to go log in, and I'm going to go to the root directory. And we're going to see that currently we have nothing, right? No WordPress. No, nothing. Basically just a complete empty site. And if we open up live training URL number 2.info, you see that's exactly what we have. So what we're basically talking about doing then is, so I should have left the other open. We're talking about moving this site here, it's currently at live training URL.info, moving it in its entirety over to a new server and a new domain name over at live training URL number 2, which right here is currently blank, and as you just saw, doesn't even have an instance of WordPress running on it. So here's the thing. We've made a full backup We've downloaded the import buddy.php file to our machine. You can do all this stuff manually exactly the way we talked about before. You can upload it to the server and follow that exact process. But here's the thing, and this is a brand new feature inside of Backup Buddy version 3. This was never available before, and so this is what we're going to show you. Let's see here. I want to clean up some of this. Go back into WordPress admin for the site that we're migrating, the original, the one that does have WordPress installed on it. Through Backup Buddy, we go to Migrate Restore. And underneath is this new option for automated migration, which is really, really cool. It may not work in every scenario. You may have to upload the import buddy.php file and the backup file zip to the new server, exactly like we showed you. But if the automated migration process is available to you, you might as well try it. So, it's saying that we can't migrate because we haven't created any backups yet. So we actually have to create a new backup, even though we had one. We have to have one live on the server in order for this to work. So I'll click Complete Backup. It'll take just a few seconds. It should take about 8 if experience is somewhat close. We have a new backup. One thing to point out is it would appear that one thing that Backup Buddy is supposed to be doing isn't working. Backup Buddy is not supposed to back up backups, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe 6.89 meg is correct. It shouldn't, by default, it shouldn't back up backups, just so you know. It should exclude those. All right, we have now a backup file. You can see under automated migration that that's been populated. And if we hover over it, we have the ability to click Migrate this backup. So that's what we're going to do. And you can see that you can send the data via existing or remote FTP, which is what we set up initially in the past, which is why we did that. One of the reasons. And of course, if it was properly here, and it should be, but Murphy's messing with us, it's not. If it's not, of course, we need to set up an FTP. The FTP account is being set up for the domain of the server that we're migrating to. So here we go again with more crazy hang-ups.
We actually had a lot of this working before, so yeah, it is Murphy tonight.
And let's see, I remember the FTP user. Nope, that's the other. Okay, we're going to get to there sooner or later. And there's the FTP password. Okay, remember that we had saved this with /public_HTML with no trailing slash. We'll test the settings to make sure that it's right. It says it is, so we're going to add the destination. And now we've got it. So the destination is now here. So we're going to go back to migrate. That's the way it should have been initially. Send via existing or remote. And then basically we're going to select this destination. So we select this destination and the process begins. So it's basically what's going to happen now is right from your own initial site, all of that stuff that we were seeing before through Import Buddy and having to navigate to a URL, it's going to populate all of that right here for us. One thing to note or be careful of, the destination site URL, it tries to populate that path as part of this URL, and this is not what we want. We want to go straight to the site URL. Should be nothing more than just this. And I think actually Jerry, we want to get rid of the trailing slash as well. Is that correct? I think I remember that being accurate.
Yes.
Okay. So you want to just have your raw URL in here exactly like I'm showing you here now without even the trailing slash. So just be cautious. Click Begin Migration, and you can say success, sending backup to server. It's going through basically that process right from inside. It says, okay, we need a import buddy password. All right, we have that. Hopefully that's stuck since nothing else has been working for us right tonight. Haha, look at that.
Woo-hoo.
Wow. Of course, we only had WordPress tables turn on. We're going to be okay, but remember that all tables is the preferred, and once you're good with everything.
Dave C. Exclude Dave C.
Yeah, not that it would matter, but yeah.
All right. Something less to delete.
Pretty much, if it can go wrong, it has tonight. Okay, so here we go. I've never gone back like this, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully this doesn't get hung up because we started and stopped. All right, we're back in the same part of the process as we were before, getting rid of everything for the destination site URL except for just the top level domain itself. Click Begin Migration. Hopefully this goes through.
No, you're going to have to restart. Okay, you're going to have to go delete the backup.
Okie doke.
Because you didn't have the import buddy password set before you started. And they were supposed to make it so that it wouldn't let you even do backups without that. But okay, so just delete that to make it easier. We don't do the wrong one. Once that's done, do a check the settings. Just well, you can go check the settings now just to make sure they're still stuck.
I'll wait till it finishes just because. All right, you can obviously download it off of your machine and then delete it after everything's done, but it needs it on the server to run this thing. So at the moment, we don't need to download it. We don't need to delete it for this particular auto migration to work. So we will go we'll check settings and just make sure that it's stuck. It looks like it did. So, okay, migrate, restore. Let's try this again. Click migrate. Hey, we still have an FTP. And I once again change to the top level domain without the trailing slash. Click begin migration. I think this is the third time, right, Jerry?
Yeah, it should be the charm.
It's the charm.
We did see it work earlier when we did it.
It worked perfectly. Okay, you know what? You can migrate from inside of Backup Buddy, but you know what? Who cares?
It looks just like the import buddy, but it's done inside. So it does the.
I am summarily frustrated. Let's see here. What we're going to do? We're going to download the. Let's see, backup. Now we're going to download it. I'm going to go to backup. So I'm going to do it manually. Here's how it's done. This is 6 PB.
Okay, and don't forget you need the import buddy. If you don't know where that was.
You only need the import buddy script is the same. You don't ever have to, as long as it's for the right version. So we already have it. We don't have to download it again. Okay. So here we go. What we need now, since we're doing it basically the manual process, we have a backup and it's 6 PB. We already have import buddy from our previous. Like I said, it's not unique. So there it goes live. And once it gets there, what we're going to do is go point our browser to our migrating URL where we're moving it to /import_buddy.php. This is exactly basically the process that we did for restoration, only this time we're moving it to an entirely new server. So let's go check FTP, and woohoo,
And this is,
we're good.
This is the same two ways that you would use from desktop server to migrate to a client. You use the exact same process.
And here's an interesting thing. Something has gone awry, and it has partly done the process. When we were over at the automated, it was messing with stuff. You see that now we have the import buddy directory. We have the settings files. These should not be here. It's also actually moved over the other zip file. So if you did the pure manual, you should not see these. I wish these were small files. They're not. So this is actually going to take a little bit to do right from here. But I'm just going to go ahead and delete them because you can't have them on the server. You only move the backup zip file and the import buddy.php script, nothing else.
So yeah, you move that from your host site, which is either on a web server or on your development system. FTP just those two files over. When you run them, they will create all these files automatically, but you should just delete the old ones. You don't know which ones are actually there and which ones might be missing. So you should just have a new site should look pretty much just like this.
Yeah, no WordPress, no nothing. The only thing that you have at this point is you've uploaded the backup zip file, you've uploaded import buddy, and the only other thing that you've done is you've created a new MySQL database, a new MySQL user, and associated password, and you've given all privileges to that particular MySQL user. That's all you have to do. Everything else will be done by backup buddy, and I'm confident that the manual process will work. Even if the
you have to say that.
I do because I'm confident.
Good.
Okay, so here we go again. Now that I said I'm confident, this is the one part I'm not confident about. Woohoo! We got past it.
So normally that would be in the WordPress area, kind of like that, if we had the migration working inside WordPress. So the steps that we're going to take here are the same ones that you would have if you're inside WordPress.
Yep, and this is the exact same thing that we did when we did the restore. So again, select the appropriate backup zip file. Again, if you follow my teaching, you're only going to have one on the server. You should not have multiples. So once that's there, click Next Step.
And by the way, just to point out, there's a thing that says Server and Upload at the top. You can click Upload by just putting Backup Buddy by itself there, but it uses HTTP uploads, and most of your backups are so large that they'll time out or have problems. So it's best not to ever use that upload button.
Yeah, just ignore that this exists.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
It's a mirage.
Okay, so it's unzipped the backup file successfully, hopefully going backwards if that process didn't just unfix me, but we'll see. Shouldn't. So again, same exact settings as before. We need to update the information to the new database name if you need to.
Up at the top, you see WordPress address. It's using the one that we're at now. But if you notice, it says previously. That's the one from the backup. So it's, just point that out. We're on a new domain.
Yeah, Backup Buddy was smart enough to figure out where we're moving to, and that's the cool thing because, like I said, it goes through all of the URLs, all the path structures, and updates all of those paths over to the new domain, which is a very big, crucial part of this step. Otherwise, all of your image paths break, etc., and that just causes all sorts of issues. So this handles it. But we do need to update the database information for the new. And so here we go. Again, make sure that you only get the real. I saw an extra space.
That's not the right one, though, is it? That's for 1, not for 2.
Is that for 1, not for 2?
Yeah, because
it should be live dose.
That's the
other. Both of these are live.
Yeah, that's.
Did I do it again?
Did you not make yeah, okay. You need to okay. So that's on 1.
They're both on 1.
You need to be on 2.
Okay. All right.
So before you run import buddy and backup buddy, or move the backup buddy zip file, you do need to make the new database at the site, like what we did earlier when we were actually, changing it. But this way, on the new site, you need to make it, the database name, the database user, and the database password on the new site, doing that through cPanel and the MySQL. Okay. Once you have that, we're going to take that information and put it into the.
You see that?
Buddy. You're on.
Yeah, but watch, it's messing me. All right, we'll open up a new tab and see. It kept. That's what happened. I put it in properly, and it keeps redirecting me back to the wrong. And there it is again, wrong.
Because you're logged in. It's the same. Yeah, I think there's some cookie problems or something.
There's maybe maybe it's Firefox. I don't know. Yeah, but it's
been using the second most popular browser in the world.
I know you like Chrome. I still prefer Firefox.
Yeah, no, I know. So so we need to log into cPanel and set up a new database. And we need to do it on the right server. So now the weird thing, I'll point out, got you with this. We could put in the wrong server information on the new site, and since they both share the same physical MySQL server, it's possible that you would have one site reading the database from the other site. So that's why you really need to be careful, especially in a reseller or shared hosting environment where they're in the same locale, that you put in the right one for the right site, because that can mess you up. If there's any questions, feel free to send them. We'll try to get to them as quickly as we can.
Yeah, after we do this right, this won't take any time. DB name, user, password, that should all be exactly what I had right here, except okay. Back we go. So we're going back to the process, and we just update the values that we created for each of the database fields, the database name, the database username, just like before, or at any other time that you've used or created a manual installation of WordPress. Again, you have the ability to update the WordPress database table prefix. You can see that before it was good and funky. Just make sure that it is, again, good and funky and different than it was before. That's wise to do. Test the database table settings. Everything's good. Good. Next step. Imports complete. Next step. We're almost done. Literally, you can migrate a site if everything goes properly in about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, and that's kind of pushing it. You could probably do it faster than that. So we're totally done. Everything's finished. The only thing it's trying to do is file cleanup, and probably this is going to fail yet again.
It's the same thing as it was before.
It's going to fail. So I don't know. It's some hiccup of Backup Buddy, probably. But we've migrated the site. So if we go look at it now, here's livetrainingurl.info, what we use to start with. Let me open up in a new tab, and we'll now go to livetrainingurl number 2.info, which previously did not even have WordPress. And now you see that, woohoo, we have a duplication of that site. Please note, you'll see right here it says livetrainingurl.info. This, of course, is the old URL. This was not a file path. It's basically just a piece of content inside of the WordPress settings. So content, or contextually, right, if you've just referred to content on your site, like you know, welcome to the greatest website in the world, livetrainingurl.info. That type of information is not going to change or be updated when you do a move through Backup Buddy. It's going to do any of the actual back-end stuff, the page URLs, post URLs, the uploads, URLs to images, etc. But if it's contextual, you will need to make that change. Just please make note of that. And that's it. So basically, once you migrate it, you know, you can log in, you can, you know, change WordPress admins. You can do all sorts of stuff. Basically, anything and everything that you can do, you can, you know, set it to private, put it in construction mode, do all sorts of work, show it to the client. Once everything's done, you can port it right back. Of course, if you're just using it for that process, if you're using it to move it, work on it, move it back, then these things, you know, they should stay intact. All that content should stay exactly as it is. And when you restore it back on the live server, you won't have to mess with any of this stuff. It'll all stay properly there. Of course, if you are truthfully moving this to a new domain, you're going to need to go through the content and update the content side of things. So I think that's it. Questions?
Okay. Somebody was asking if you're going to be moving this from livetrainingurl.info at one place to livetrainingurl.info at another place. Let's say from, you know, host 1 to host 2.
Same domain name.
Same domain name. What do you have to do differently? Okay,
so you go get the new hosting account, and the new hosting account, when you get it, you'll sign up. I mean, of course, you don't have to, but if you're using that as the primary domain for the account, then you just use the same thing. So I could have this sitting over here at HostGator. I could go open a Liquid Web account and use livetrainingurl.info as my primary domain over there with them. It doesn't matter that the site is live somewhere else. It's absolutely fine. When you sign up to the other account, they're going to give you temporary domain names that you can access your server, and you'll need to access your server with the temporary domain names. It won't be livetrainingurl number 2.info. It will be something else, and that is part of the reason that you have some of the functionality or feature sets changes inside of Backup Buddy available to you, like the ability to change the site URL. So you basically use the temporary login information to migrate to. Once the migration is done, you can go just double check everything. Of course, the DNS is still pointing to the old account, so everyone who's seeing it is still seeing the old. Again, remember that if you're going to do it that way, you're going to want to set either that site into maintenance mode so nobody can add content or change the database, or at least at the very minimum, turn off commenting and don't post any new content. That way people can see the site in its old location until you're ready to make the move. Once you're ready to make the move, then the only last piece of that pie basically is to just update your DNS to point to the new server. So as soon as the domain names propagate to the new server, then automatically visitors will start hitting the new server as opposed to the old, and then you can delete the old server and run with the new.
There's one small piece you left out that's critical.
Okay.
You can't get into your WordPress admin using the temporary host name, because it will try to redirect back to the full URL that was set up originally with Backup Buddy. So there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest way is to, on your Mac or your Windows machines, is to set up a temporary hosts file, which you should look on your particular operating system how to do that. What you do is similar to what's going on with desktop server. You migrate everything over using the temporary one. You run Backup Buddy using the temporary one. But before you log into your admin, you make your computer, just your computer, think the new IP address of the server is equal to that domain. And then when you go to, just like my computer thinks that example.dev is a particular IP address, I would make sure that live training URL info is the new IP address for my computer. And then I can log in through the browser and set everything up and have it all ready, and then go change the DNS. And then people will start coming over to this site. And then on the other site, you shut down anything that's being updated by users, such as comments and things like that, before you do the final backup. So you can do a migration, and then as they hit the new site and as it propagates, you'll be fine. That said, that's what we did with Web Dev course, and we had some issues. When we went to do it, we moved the DNS over. However, some companies like Time Warner hold on to the old DNS for like ever. They want to keep it forever. That's what I personally suggest, using something like OpenDNS, which updates faster and stuff. So we had people still hitting the old site, and what has to happen is we either have to wait till that DNS server gives up the and gets the new IP address, or you delete the old site and it forces the update to happen, hopefully. The problem will be is during that time some people might get a server not found error. So it's kind of something you just kind of need to wait to happen. It does take a while. Give about 72 hours if there's bad DNS that are holding. But usually it propagates within a few minutes. So,
good point. We probably need to find a solid tutorial or tutorials on the hosts issue to forward, because unless they've actually modified their host file in the past, it can kind of be tricky. You have to make sure that you have the ability on a PC to run as an administrator. Otherwise, it won't let you make the change, etc. So we probably need to find some tutorial about editing or adding stuff to a host file.
There is one for Windows 7 and Vista at Microsoft.com. So if you search for how to edit hosts in their knowledge base, there's a step-by-step.
All right. So if I were doing that, being the search guy I am, I would put in Microsoft.com. And what was it called? Just Windows 7 host?
Well, edit hosts file, and just edit hosts file should be enough.
All right. So there's one at technet.microsoft.com, setting up host files.
Yeah, like the answers is probably correct, because it's saying Windows 7 will not let me edit the host file, which is the #1 complaint, because you need to be in admin mode. So, do you want me to take over and just do it real quick?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, give me the keys. Is everyone up for hanging around for a few more minutes? Okay.
Want to see a host file edited live?
Ooh, live.
All right.
Okay, let's see.
I clicked the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I gotta get my programs running.
Are you
Did I
ready?
show my? Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry. Well,
No, no, it was me. I thought I was ready. I'm like, why? I don't need everyone to see my personal server. I need to see pictures of me. Let's see. Okay, I am ready. All right, we're at someplace you don't need to see either. Here, look at security. Everyone sees security okay? Yes,
I
no?
do.
Okay. All right. I'm doing this in Windows 7 and Windows Vista. It's similar. In XP, you do not need to be administrator. It's slightly different under OS X under on a Mac, but it's the same kind of file, but it's how to edit. What we're going to do is I'm going to go into programs and just bring up, I'm going to bring up something. Where does Notepad hide out these days? I thought it was hanging out here.
Accessories.
Accessories, yeah,
Yeah, very
okay.
top.
I guess I have mine. I normally have mine pinned. So Notepad can be used to edit this text file, and the text file is hiding in Windows System 32, Windows System 32, drivers, and some of this might be hidden, etc. And then you need to make sure you have all files. So now you see these files that are hanging out here. And the one that we're looking for is hosts. And I'll go show a different way to get here in a minute. And I'll show you why this doesn't work right now. So we open up hosts. This is the host file. And inside the host file, you can see when I was doing the web dev course one, we set up to go to a different IP address. So what the file is basically the IP address, then a space or tabs, and then the domain names you want. So for example, desktop server set up these sample ones, which are the same as the local host. It's my local IP address. And it set these up so that they work on my site. So if we wanted to change it so that my computer sees the new server, you would put the new server's IP address here, and you would put the domain that you want to be redirected to that new IP address.
So in that case, it would be like live training URL2.info.
Right. So live training URL, training URL
2.info.
2.info. So this would be the new IP address at the new server. So my computer now says whenever you use live training URL 2.info, you go to that IP address, not the real one. And this is also somehow some malware works. So because of that, they would put in like a bad IP address for PayPal or something. So what happens is when you go to save this and you go to tell it to save the hosts file and you click save, you get this permissions. And it's saying, hey, you can't save there, you need to contact the administrator. The reason why is your editor has to be in administrator mode, and this is not, we did not run as administrator. So we can't save. So what we need to do is we go into Notepad, and when you're in Notepad, this is something kind of like what I showed earlier with desktop server, is you click run as administrator. And so now this opens up, it brings up a box that's saying, do you want this to run as administrator? It's something that you're not seeing, but I'm seeing locally. And you say yes. And now I'm in administrator, which looks like identical to what it looked before. And I'm still in C, Windows, System 32, drivers, etc. Say all files, and there's the host file. And if you notice, it didn't save with the change. So now if I go in here and make that change again, live training URL2.info, and I go to save it, it saved it fine. It didn't give any error messages for me. So my host file is now saved. The next step you need to do is either reboot or run your command line, and you do ipconfig. This just saves you from rebooting. Rebooting is too easy. Just ipconfig flush DNS /flush DNS. Hit enter, and now it sees the new IP address for live training URL info.2. This is the old one. So when I do it here, I get my local host. So now whenever I see live training URL 2, my computer now sees that. In your case, you would point it to the new IP address, so now you'd be seeing the same site at the new host. But WordPress looks to your computer, looks to the browser to figure out what to do. So while you're doing that, you can now be working on the new site with the correct URL and domain while the other site is still live for everybody else. And then you switch the DNS and then they move over. When you're done with that, though, you do want to go into Notepad and remove it, just in case it ever changes again. You wonder, hey, why am I messed up? But that is basically how to trick your computer to look at the new site instead of the old site, so you can work on it. And that's how we moved our sites from one server company to another. And somebody asked about OpenDNS. This works with your router or your computer, and they're the ones that a DNS is when you type in something in your address bar. The internet doesn't run on words; it runs on numbers. And so your browser goes out to a DNS or domain name server, and it looks up basically the phone number, the IP address, and brings it back. OpenDNS replaces your ISP DNS with a much more stable, malware-free, anti-phishing DNS, and it has it's a freemium thing, and they have how to change your your router over and stuff. So if you ever want to look into that. But what I was going to show here is what happens is that you might have let's see, live training url2.info. My computer sees that as that new address, but the rest of the world sees it on the old, the real one for now. And so once you change your domain name at the registrar, wherever you're hosting it, I always go here, and then there's a refresh which will change it. And that's typically how basic domains work. So you can do that. You can then migrate, and then you can be up and running and working on the new site as if it was the same URL. So that's what dealing with migrating before you have the two names. Now, if you're migrating from one domain to another, you don't have to worry about any of this. Or if you're migrating from like desktop server to developer name, which is another domain name, to another, you don't have to worry about this. This is only if you're migrating from an existing site to an existing site like what we did.